All right. Hey, summer school family. Glad you're here with us. Glad you're here with me. This is going to be a ton of fun. So excited for our 5th year. Hard to believe, George.
5 years. It's gone by pretty quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
It's been fun, though. It's been fun. We've experienced a lot of different challenges, but one of the things I'm excited about is over the course of these last 5 years, in particular, these last year and a half, 2 years, we got to meet a lot of our students too. That's been great.
Yes. So we'll have a fun reel. What do you call it? I'm not cool enough to know what it's called. Like a camera roll on Thursday. We'll share some of the pictures of George and I getting to meet many of you out and about in the last year or so on our travels and at some events, all that good stuff. So we're excited to have you here. If you're new to the HR Summer School family, welcome. We're glad to have you. Welcome, freshmen. You can go ahead and chime in the chat. Let us know what year you are and let us know how long you've been participating here with us. I saw a lot of 5th year seniors, or 5th years, chiming in. A lot of people that are new as well. So it's always fun to see where everybody's from. So we're going to have some great fun today. We're all going to learn something today. Even us, we're going to learn something as well. George had some great interviews with people. I've had some great interviews with people. We're going to be sharing those things, and we're going to kick off in just a few minutes. I'm going to share a couple of our housekeeping notes with you, and then I'm actually going to kind of slide off the screen and let George do a quick mini share of something that's on his heart, something that he's thinking a lot about these days, and we'll come back together and dive into our very first session for the day. So let's get this shared up here really quickly on what we're gonna some more notes. Okay. Okay, is it shit? Oh, there it is. It's like I've done this before once or twice, maybe. Okay, so welcome, summer school, day 1 for 2024. We're excited to be here. A couple of things. So if you catch this stream and you are not registered for this event, you're like, hey, I just happened to cross this on LinkedIn. This is so cool, or Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're finding us. You've got to be registered if you want to win prizes. So get registered, hrsummerschool.org. You can find that banner on all the stuff we're doing today, as well as chime in, be engaged, have some fun, share your thoughts, share your questions, share your comments. Tell George when he's wrong or when he's right. Yeah, or when he's right. Hey, tell him you love his whatever acronym he's going to come up with today, because that's one thing he's known for. So chime in there. We do a lot of giveaways, books and shirts and notebooks and all other kind of fun stuff. It's going to be a blast. We'll be doing SHRM and HRCI credits after the event, already approved for all of those. And then we will be live streaming. So the times on the hrsummerschool.org website, where the agenda is for the entire event, may flux just a little bit of fluctuation there because it's a live stream. We try to keep it close, but sometimes I get long-winded. George has to rein me in a little bit. And so that's what you can expect. Really quickly,
I feel like it's the other way around.
You know what? I wasn't going to say anything, but thank you so much to our sponsors and supporters for making the event possible. We appreciate every single one of you. You'll hear from Amy Mosher today. We have Jason from Bucket List. You had a great interview with Jason, so we'll hear from them today on some of the stuff they're doing, how they're working. Tomorrow we'll hear from Zazu and Goody, and then Thursday, Hi Bob and Clear Company. So each of them have come alongside us. Don't just want to say, hey, we'll help the event, but we want to be part of that, and we want to engage with this amazing community. So we're grateful for each of them for that. Okay, I think that's all the big housekeeping items that I had to take care of. George, the floor is yours. You've got about 7 minutes. Have some fun with it. Hey, you never had 7 minutes uninterrupted since your very first. For those of you that don't know, the very first year, George, that's how he and I met. He was one of our speakers for summer school. He made me cry, and that's how we became friends. So, if one of you makes me cry, maybe we'll be friends too.
There you go. But the secret of friendship is through tears.
Something like that. Maybe it's the foundation for it anyway. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share. I have no clue what you're going to be bringing to us.
This is great.
No pressure. Have fun. Bring some good stuff. I'll see you all in just a minute.
See you later, Principal Ben. This is so awesome. And so I just want to share with you. I have the opportunity to travel and speak in a lot of places. And one of the things I really, really enjoy is being able to see the crowd and experience them light up the room. And so this is what I want to do, since we're all virtual and I can't see you. I can't put my camera out and show the crowd to everybody. Virtually, what you can do is right now, get ready. I'm going to count to 3, and I just want you to hit your like button, your heart button, whatever you're feeling insightful, whatever it is that you're feeling right now in this moment that you may be intrigued by. If you are a freshman, you're not used to this event, this is going to be exciting for you this whole day, this whole week. But if you're a sophomore, junior, senior, fifth year student, and you know what you're expecting this week, I want you to, on the count of three, I want to see as many hearts, likes, insightful, funny, whatever it may be, joy that you're feeling for this week and excitement for HR Summer School on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Let's hit them up real quickly. Let's hit them. I want to see those pop up on the screen. And then we got Ben here. If you're in the office and you can't virtually scream really loud, give us a golf loud clap. Also, thank y'all so much. That just made my morning. And so I want to talk just for the next 4 minutes, maybe 5, since Ben stayed here after he gave me 7 and then took an extra minute. I want to encourage you today and really challenge you to open up your mind, open up your heart this week. When I think about HR Summer School and all the people that I got to meet over this last year, some of our alumni, whether it's on the HR cruise I met you or at a different event that we were both at attending, I want to say it was an honor. And what I've learned over the course of the last year is I've seen courageous leaders. I've seen excitement. I've seen impactful people. I've seen stressful leaders. I've seen leaders that were struggling, that needed some encouragement and enlightenment. And one of the things that I realized when I see every HR Summer School alumni that I met is that there's a subtle piece about them when we come together, when we connect together. And I want to talk about that. As an acronym junkie, you'll get to know this all week. I'm going to give you a double piece. Because I want to give you peace for your peace, if that makes any sense to you. And one of the things that really stood out when we did our research very recently for our peace study, which stood for performance, engagement, and culture enablement. One of the things that really stood out to me is that 70% of employees that came back and said, you know what, I love the place that I work. I have no desire to quit. In comparison to those who says, you know what, I'm checked out. In the next 6 months, I'm leaving my company. 70% of those employees that say, hey, I'm happy with my current place, had a direct connection to say, you know what, my manager, my leader, that person who recruited me, that person who's a part of my process, that's part of my day-to-day, that manager helped me perform at a higher level, helped me feel like I belong at this workplace. And so I want to encourage you today, as we get started, you're going to hear some amazing speakers. I want to encourage you to have peace. One of the things that I believe that impactful leaders who are courageous leaders, who light up the room, right, who changes the atmosphere wherever they stand. One of the things that I believe that is so impactful is that they do 5 things. And here's your peace acronym for you today. Courageous leaders, number 1, they're purpose-driven. They are purpose-driven. They help people discover not just what they do for their job. It's not what you're doing for the company, but also aligning it with why they're doing it. They have a sense of purpose with what they're doing and for how long. Whether it's short tenure, this is just a right now job. It may not be a full retirement career type thing, but this is where I'm at right now. They give a purpose to the sense of what they're doing and why they're doing it. The second thing I love about courageous leaders, and I love about all these alumni that I met, that they're so empathetic. Part of their leadership is sharing empathy, knowing that sometimes, hey, we do have to have some discipline. We do have to have some tough conversations at times, but we lead with empathy with our people. The other thing that I love about courageous leaders and HR Summer School alumni that I met is that every one of them have been adaptable. Whether they're in the act of service and they're serving at an event or we are making plans, it's just that adaptive nature that no matter what is going on, great leaders seem to adapt in the situations. And I know, and I've learned about HR, and I love this shirt that I'm wearing today. I wore it just for you because this t-shirt just has different things that everybody thinks HR is and what they may think. And one of my favorite on here is peacemaker. Some people say that HR is a teacher. We have to have event planners as well. But HR leaders, you yourself in this space, seem to be able to adapt no matter the situation. The other thing that I love about HR leaders that and HR Summer School alumni that I met, they are conductors of chaos. This is my favorite one because no matter what the situation, sometimes it's very chaotic and it seems like there's nothing going right. There's so much turbulent times and we've experienced that. In fact, HR Summer School 5 years ago started during some chaotic times as we were enduring the pandemic. And we all adapted and was able to go through. The last one that I love about HR Summer School alumni is that they empower, not just for themselves, they empower others. And so I want to encourage you today, as you have peace, courageous leaders, they have purpose driven, they help people discover their why, not just what they do. They're empathetic, they adapt, they are conductors of chaos, and they are empowering others. When you do that, that's part of that 70% of employees that says, you know, I want to stay here. I want to be here. I want to belong. And it's because of you, leaders like you, that says, you know what? I'm happy in my current state. I'm happy with my current employer, and there's no desire to leave. So as you're getting ready today, you're going to hear all these great leaders and great speakers. Principal Ben, come and join me again, my friend. We're going to have some peace. No matter what your situation is, no matter how you're feeling today, I want to encourage you to discover your peace, purpose-driven, empathetic, adaptable, conductors of chaos, and of course, leading with empowerment. We're excited, man. I'm excited.
I'm all fired up now.
Woo! Let's go.
All right, let's have some fun. We're going to dive into our first conversation with Steve Brown. I hope you are strapped in, ready to go, because we got some good stuff ahead.
Well, I am so excited to be here with my friend, my virtual friend. I can't wait to see you in person here in a couple of weeks at SHRM. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But welcome you, Steve Brown. You're not a stranger to HR Summer School, but for those who are freshmen this year that may not know who you are and what you do, could you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself a little bit?
Oh, I love the formal part. Everybody forgets a bio, so that's great. Officially, I'm Steve Brown, Chief People Officer of La Rosa's Incorporated. It's a regional pizzeria. I'm very excited. I have my pin. You can't quite see it on my shirt. We've been around 70 years this year, which is just incredible for a restaurant. And this will be my 18th year being a part of them. So I'm one of those odd people. I don't apologize for being in HR. I chose HR. 30 some years ago, almost 40 years ago. And it's more exciting now than it was when I started.
That is awesome. I love that you're not apologizing. You know, I get the question all the time, George, how did you end up in HR? Once people find out my background, I say they accepted me and I decided to move in. About it. I love being in this environment, wonderful people and people like yourself who have a heart for it. I want to chat just a little bit and just have this conversation. We've had a pre-conversation, so we'll record this for everybody to chat in and listen to what we've already been talking about. But you've been doing what you're doing. And first off, shout out to La Rosa's Pizza. My favorite, I'm a Buckeye, but I always stop. There's an exit that has a Skylines Chili and La Rosa's Pizza, and I stop and get me the best chili cheese dog and the best pizza in Ohio. So those are my favorite two stops, and I do eat them both. But with over 30 years of experience, Steve, what are some of those key principles or values that you have found that really became really instrumental in keeping your HR spark and that fire alive throughout your career?
I love the question. I would say the first thing I'd tell you about I had to learn. I think being genuine and authentic is key to being in HR. Too many people put on a work face or an HR face or a compliance face or whatever you want to frame it as. And when I did that, and I did, you know, because that's what I was taught and it was what I was modeled, it was awful. Hated it. I was reluctant to be in it. And I thought, if this is all it is, I don't know if I want to stay in this. But then when I worked for an entrepreneur who said, I just want you for you, I was like, oh, well, let's see what that is. And the thing that's funny is we're not human ourselves. Too many HR people say we want to put the H in HR, which is just stupid because we're not people ourselves. You can see from my office, my shirt, I am who I am, but I don't expect somebody else to be who I am. And too often, I think we change that narrative. The other thing is I've never believed in conformity. So I don't like HR policies or procedures that try to confine people and put things in some narrow strata. People are too cool and they're unique and diverse and have strengths. I think the other piece is meet people where they are versus where I think they should be. So when I meet a 16-year-old who's just freaking out because it's his first job or her first job, that's exciting. I was just at our pizzeria right before I got on the call here, and I knew everybody by name. And they're like, Steve, I'm like, what's up, Julia? What's up, Fran? What's up, Rob? The personalization of what we do makes a difference. I've always thought that people mattered. I'm not a people person. I think people matter, you know, and that makes HR so much more fun. I think the last thing is I just have fun all the time. This is not a show or an act. This is who I am. People like to have fun, and we've forgotten that. It was fun. It's so funny. So many of our peers, George, I hear about burnout, and I guarantee you they're not having fun.
Yeah.
Number one, I already don't enjoy what I do because I'm burned out. Well, yay. I laugh every day, man. I mess with people. I was just cutting up with the finance people, which is hard to do just before we got on here, because you got to enjoy the people you're around.
That's so true. When I hear you say all those things, I think about the importance that we champion our own purpose and we champion ourselves. You know, in this great life, one of the things I love about HR leaders is that they continue to show up for others. But the priority that I hear from your voice is show up for yourself, lead yourself. And part of leading yourself is knowing who you are and being unapologetically, as you say, being the best you, being the best version of you, whatever that looks like. If the cup is half full, be the best you that is half full, you know, however it may be. But doing that authentically while enjoying it and enjoying life and having a good time doing those things. How do you initiate that? How do you get those strategies and implement those things in your day-to-day over the years to be able to maintain that passion? We talked about leading yourself. I hear leadership and self-leadership in your voice and what you're saying. I hear having that drive to just be you. There's always going to be stress within the workplace or business, but if you're able to just to show up and have fun through that stress and overcome those things, I hear that motivation. Don't wait for somebody else to motivate you. Be your own motivation because of the things that you're passionate about. How do you then implement those things to keep that passion, to keep that drive, that motivation, and to feel the HR that is such an for such an extended time period that you have?
I read a great book by Chip and Dan Heath a few years ago. That's probably been more than 10 years ago now. Called Switch. And it's one of the best books I've ever read. And in it, they talk about how to be emotional first and rational second, because that's who we are as people. And I can't tell you how many years it was like, here's what's going on. Logically, that stuff makes sense all the time. But people bring their junk to work, which is wonderful. And too many people go, they would just drop the drama and drop the emotion. I'm like, bring it on. Let's go. You know, the best tool I have in my HR toolbox is a box of Kleenex. Because if you're going to cry, I'm crying with you. If you're going to yell, I'm yelling with you. If you're going to get bent out of shape, I'm going to get bent out of shape with you. But what's really funny is we try not to do that. We try to sanitize work. And when I had jobs where that was the expectation, to just keep things in line and sanitize everything, horrible cultures, absolutely awful. When I've worked at a place where you can be yourself, I work with very hands-on people, and the language is often colorful. And I don't go, oh. It's like, hey, all right. Or I don't recite a passage from a policy or a passage from the handbook. We talk about each other as humans. You and I were talking about your travel and your kids and that kind of stuff. That is far more important to doing what we do. And when you put it into practice, if you take care of the person emotionally first, you can do anything you want. It's that simple.
Yeah. I think about the impact that what you're saying does, right? You're creating a space, not just for teams or for a company, you're creating a space and a culture where people want to be around Steve. People want to be around leaders that care, and not just say that they care, but they show it. And part of showing that is what you said is, hey, if you're going to cry, we're going to cry. If you're yelling, we're going to yell. Whatever it is that you're going through, we're going to be in this together. It's that in it to win it mentality. I love it. When I had retail stores, we used to always say, we're going to win together and nobody loses alone. And so if
I love that.
We're losing together. If we win, it's because we're going to do this together. But we take on that cloak and that burden, in a sense, as HR leaders, that we're going to lead people. And part of that leading people is that some people are emotional. Some people are emotionless, but whatever it is, we're gonna be with that person. When somebody has a leader like that, they're 2.5 times more likely to stay, right? That say that they have a a sense of belonging, that psychological definition of belonging where I feel respected, accepted, and appreciated, right? Those are things that you're saying, hey, we got to not just speak on these things. And it's weird in HR because there's those compliance and all those things, but we got to do so in love. I want to talk about this word love. Because we don't hear it a lot, right? We love what we do. Man, Steve loves working, where he works in LaRousse. But man, I love working with my team. I love working with these individuals. How do we you talk about bringing the human, right? Humanity. There's something that we all get connected with. That general word of love. I see all these heart emblems now. A lot of companies saying love HR and love so-and-so. How can we stop pinning it and it becoming a new mission value thing on the wall or on our shirt and our coats? How can we start living that? Being authentic. Part of me being authentic, Steve, is that I'm going to hug you if I see you in person. I'm going to love you and let you know that I love you and I appreciate you. Verbally, I'm going to express that through my servanthood. But how do we bring love to this platform of sustainability? When I think of Steve being 30 years plus, when I think about myself doing what I've done for 25, 30 years as well, I think love kept me. Where I was frustrated the most, it was that word. What does that mean to you, and how do you encourage others to not just know what they do, but have a why and a purpose behind that?
I think the first thing is allow yourself to be vulnerable. Quit trying to fix people. You can't. You don't fix yourself. My gosh, we're a mess. And that's good. It's okay. Everybody's got stuff going on. But my job isn't to come and fix anything. My job is to come and listen, assess, coach, encourage, correct. It's not all, you can love somebody by giving them direction. You can love somebody by being there. A team member came in recently, talked about how they wanted to improve their job and take on more. Now, isn't that great? It wasn't part of a review or anything. They go, I just like to do more. I go, okay. And then right after that, they started getting weepy. And I was like, uh-oh, here we go. Personal situation. First thing I did said, come here. And I just held them. And you're like, you're not allowed to do that. Yes, I am. My gosh, it's just been beaten out of the workplace. That holding that person, saying, I'm going to listen to you. I'm not here to give you advice. I'm here just to be a sounding board for you. How do you make it come to life? Be the safe haven for your company. If you're in HR, anything that comes to you doesn't freak you out, that they can come and talk about the most horrific thing and the most wonderful thing. And for HR people, quit thinking the worst when people walk into your office. Holy crud, that's a giant thing. Real quick story. Mike LaRosa came down to my office. He's the CEO. And he said, hey, I saw this video of a hippie and I thought of you. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Let's go. He says, you've got to watch this video. So I watched it, and the guy is a hippie, legit. He can grow his hair long. I wish I still could. I can't. He had a tie-dye shirt on. He was just this hippie dude. And behind him was this sign. And the sign is this. If you do more 2 people versus 4 people, your life is not successful. If you do more 4 people versus 2 people, your life is successful. Lost my mind, ran down the hall, said, I love this. I want to steal it. We made sure that we could. And then this block sits on every one of our team members' desks to remind them that we do things for people, not 2 people. So I think it's a matter of HR quit trying to be this businessy thing that doesn't fit our skin. Be the people-y thing and show the business side of it. I think if companies don't become people-centric, George, soon they're not going to be around. So it's a great opportunity for us as a profession to step in.
Yeah, I've been saying this for the last month, is that some people don't want to be fixed. Now, there are some people that says, hey, please fix me. I want to be a better employee. Sure. I want to be a better person, a man or a woman or a wife, husband. But when I hear even those people say, hey, help me, fix me, what I really hear is, I don't really want to be fixed. I just want to be heard.
Yes.
I don't need you to fix me. I just want to know that my voice matters.
Sure.
As much as the fruit of my labor that I give to this organization, that you hear me, even when I don't speak. That true leadership sees the body language of an individual and know that they're not in the same space that they once were. What do I need to do? How do I need to show up for that person? And maybe that's saying, hey, I'm here. What is it that you need from me? Do you need a hug? Do you need an ear? Do you need a walk? Do you need some food? Like, what is that love language? Like, what's going to speak to your soul to get you to a better place that I can still show up for you how you need me to be as a leader. It's so powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to ask you one last thing. You can take this, answer it, or give me some Steveism, however you want to do it. But I want to know, because I want to know some of those top priorities that we could focus on for all our HR summer school, for our freshmen and freshwomen and fifth year seniors here, to focus on that HR professionals should consistently uphold in order to be able to sustain longevity, to have that enthusiasm within their careers for 30 plus years.
I would say there's three. The first one is, if people aren't worth your time, get out of HR. Just get out. Find a different field where you don't have to be as people-y, because every day, my day is 175% people. And if that bothers you or tears you apart, find something else. And that's true for those that lead as well. So the majority of HR doesn't happen in HR. It happens in the departments where others are leading others. And if they're leaders and they're not taking care of their people, they cannot be leaders. And we need to make that happen. We need to stand on that. The second thing is this: HR should be integrated throughout the organization instead of a department that sits on the outside only for emergency use only. I shouldn't have said only twice, but okay. We are so reactionary and have been for decades. I think we should drive change. We should drive leadership by integrating and building relationships. We bring that to the table. We're the only profession that gets to work with every employee, only one. So take advantage of that and move that ahead. And the third thing is this: you should be the steward of the company that says no. We've been taking, I used to be the guy who beat the HR always says no. No. I help reduce risk. I keep us on the right path. I make sure our CEO and our senior leadership don't step down a mucky path just because they want to. That's part of the joy that we bring. Safety and security is that, well, if you look at the Maslow's hierarchy, I want to be safe and secure first. That's us. Yeah. And if we can't provide that, you're missing out. So I look forward to every day. I just come in like, here we go, what's on? And I plan little, but that's me. I come and experience the day as it comes. And it's much more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, I love saying that. I love creating moments and turning moments into movements, and movements creating those memories within our team. So what does this moment look like? How we make this a movement within our whole organization to get everybody engaged, and that engagement becomes a memory of a lifetime for however long they are with the company. Some people are with them for 20, 30 plus years. And you have some people on your team that, especially in retail and food industry, that sometimes it's a start. It's not an end of a career for a lot of them, but it's a process of however long you have that person, how much value can you pour into them to see them grow into the man and woman they desire to be on that end. So I appreciate this conversation, Steve. I wish we can continue on. How can people connect with you? Where can they find more about Steve? You're an author, you're a well-known speaker.
I still use Twitter, and I know a lot of people don't. I get past the person, doggone it. To me, I'm connected to George. That's what matters. Yeah. So whatever platform you're on, I'm there. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. It's Steve Brown with an E. If you are kind enough to read my books, you can find them on Amazon. And this is the only thing I would encourage you to do. Don't get my books to buy a book. Get my books to look at HR differently and people differently. If you do that, you should find a lot of resources that do that. But that's why I want people to take that. And if I ever see you in person, like I'm going to see you, George, you better be ready for a hug. Because my rule is first time handshake, second time hug. But if someone opens the door, I'm coming. Because I want people to know, I know how hard HR is. I know how difficult and challenging it can be. The thing, isn't that great? Wouldn't you rather have a job that's not? I want a job that's challenging. That drives me. So I think be encouraged in what you do and understand that I'm in there with you in the trenches doing the same thing.
That's awesome. I appreciate you, Steve, as always. And I hope somebody's ready for a virtual Steve hug.
Well, good luck with the summer school. I'm excited. Another year of summer school is great.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. So I love it. I mean, goodness. So if y'all have been with summer school before, if that was your first exposure to Steve, well, now you know why we had Steve kick us off, because he's a great people person. One of the things that I tried to comment, I tried to find it again. I couldn't find it. The comments are going wild. But he's like, if HR is feeling like it's not for you, then find a less people-y job. And I'm like, that I wrote that one down. Like, people-y is a great description of what we do in HR every single day. We're the people, and we have to deal with the good. We have to deal with the bad. And as long as you don't let the days where it's the bad, the negative, the hard stuff, like, don't let that jade you. No, like, we still have the opportunity and the privilege to impact people in this very incredible sort of way. And that's what I love about hearing from Steve there. So, my friend, appreciate you. You were tremendous. George is okay too, but you were tremendous, Steve. I appreciate it. We're picking on each other a lot today.
I love Steve-isms. You know, it's like he's so great, and he's just genuine.
Yes.
And so I always enjoy a genuine-hearted person who loves hugs.
Yes.
And so there's nothing wrong with hugging Rogers. That's what HR stands for. Hugging Rogers.
Okay.
George Rogers, you get that?
There we go. I mean, that's maybe a new record. It took you a whole 32 minutes to catch up with, to get a acronym out of your mouth today. So, well, no, you started off with one. I apologize. You started off with one. It took you exactly 45 seconds of talking to get into that. So,
Principal Ben needs his Mountain Dew, ladies and gentlemen.
You know what? I may need a bit of caffeine. So we're going to bring Amy Mosher to the stage. Amy is over at iSolved. She is a firecracker. I love and appreciate her so much. And she is wearing the thing. I asked her what this thing she's wearing during the session. So you'll have to it'll be hard to see on the screen. She's wearing this little decoration here, though. I asked her what it is, and I'm going to try to work with the iSolved team. We're going to give some of those away, because all of you that are listening here that do this hard work every day are people heroes. And iSolved talks about people heroes like all of you and the hard work you do that's worth notice, that's worth applauding, that's worth respecting and appreciating. So we'll do some people heroes shout outs and stuff later on. So, all right, without any further ado, let's dive into Amy Mosher's conversation and hear what she has to share on how to build a company that people want to join and don't ever want to leave. There we go. School family, so glad to be back here with you. And I am thrilled that my good friend Amy Mosher is here with us, because if you remember Amy, she last year brought us one of our big ideas, one of our big takeaways, our big fun session in the chat last year was when Amy mentioned something about employee belonging being the ranch dressing of HR and pouring it on everything and making it connected to people. And so it has become we've got shirts out there now. George was wearing his a few weeks ago at an event. And so it's become a thing. And so Amy is back with us again. She's going to share some things about what it takes to create a workplace people can't wait to join and don't want to leave, which are two important things all of us care about. So Amy, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here, Ben. Anytime I can spend with you is good time.
I would say the same about you, my friend. So before we get to some of the fun stuff, we're going to kick back and forth, and you've already promised me some energy, some laughs, some fun in this. So no pressure. Let's make it happen. Take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
I'm the Chief People Officer at iSolved. We are a human capital management and solutions business. And look, I got the best job in the entire world here, Ben. There's no question. To be the Chief People Officer of a business like this is a dream come true for me. Prior to coming on board as the head of HR, I also was a client of the business, which makes it unique. And I, get to grow companies and get to grow people for a living. So it's pretty fun over here. We are a high growth business. We are ever changing. We've grown exponentially in the last 4 years. We're going to continue to do so for the foreseeable future. And so we're an incredibly dynamic business, and we've built our business on great culture. So actually grown the business with the thought and the basis of culture. So I'm really excited to talk about this today.
And so when I hear you say that excites me, because one of the first jobs I had in HR, I worked for a company where the leaders had worked for a smaller company. It was acquired by a bigger company. And the reason they worked for that small company was because the culture was employee focused. They cared about people, and you could feel what it was like to work there was different. And they got acquired and swallowed up, and pretty quickly everything sort of smoothed out to this pale blah gray of whatever the culture was at that bigger company. And they said, you know what? This stinks. We missed that. Yeah. Why don't we start our own company? And so he and a friend of his started their own company. And that's the company I went to work for as an HR leader for this startup that was doing some really cool stuff around training, the military, everything else. And so they saw the importance of that. I felt that early in my career, the importance of that. And now you have a chance to influence that. So let's take that as sort of our sort of guiding mark for this conversation.
Sure.
The title here is, how do we create a company where people can't wait to join? So talk about the importance of culture in that, how to make that culture visible outside our four walls, because good stuff may be happening, but if they don't know about it out there, we can't use it to attract them in.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I wanted to set kind of a stage here and say that when I came on board, we knew that we were going to have to build this business with rigor, right? Like it was primed and ready, great solution, great technology, really just needed to grow. And in order to do that, we were going to have to attract top talent in an industry where most of the other companies were public businesses that had a lot more cash, to be honest, to throw at these people. And it was a candidate market at the time. And so we really had to sit down and put our little thinking caps on and decide how we were going to attract these individuals and retain them with as cost effectively as we possibly could. Right. And one of the ways that we felt that we could do that was by just injecting this incredible energy and utilizing the energy that already existed within the organization to build on that culture piece. Because to your point, Ben, we felt that many of our competitors in the market we were going to be getting talent from were Gray Suit, Gray Cube, HCM. As you get larger, kind of feels a little bit financial services-y, if you will. And not that that's a bad thing, it's just different. And so we decided we were going to be like the startup, high energy, young, cool place to work because there wasn't really that alternative out there. And what we ended up finding is that we had all of that kind of basis infrastructure. We were a growing business. We had plenty of cash, highly profitable. And so we were very, but we still had that like high energy, let's go rocket kind of mentality. And so we doubled down internally and externally on the messaging for that to attract candidates. And so we built a culture based on high trust, high communication, opportunity, career advancement opportunity, real advancement opportunity, transparency across the business. Hey, this is what's really going on in the business. As we grew, we were talking about things like, you know what we really don't want to do as we grow? We don't want to create silos and we don't want to create this political kind of machine. We want to be open and honest and keep that going because we were attracting candidates from situations where they felt restricted by some of those things. So we openly went and said, we are the anti of that, and created a culture of that kind of openness. We did it on the basis of diversity, which was really fun from an HR perspective. So we said, we're going to put together these really incredible ERG groups, these with EDI and B focus, and we're going to utilize that to attract, and we're going to dive deep there as well. That's not something that that the industry was necessarily doing for us as far as talent attraction. And we really focused on kind of those underserved demographics, both culturally and from a traditional demographic perspective. And we were able to create this really diverse kind of cool culture where people are happy to share ideas. We still have that really high energy. There's really high ownership and accountability as a result. And we've been able to maintain that. And here we are, over 500 million in revenue, marching toward $1 billion. It's a really cool place to be. And we're going to maintain this. This is foundational to us now. It's DNA. So I'm taking incoming calls right now because of the work that we've done there from a cultural impact perspective. I'm taking incoming calls from top talent at our competitor companies. That is a dream come true for any HR or executive for that matter at a growth business like ours. I've got to say we're making it happen, but it's taking constant work. It's taking always when we make good business decisions, it's founded within our values and it's founded on our shared competencies that we've agreed to and our culture. And we're circling back to that. And as long as we continue to do that, we're going to continue to build this really cool culture. Of course, I'm excited. I'm the head of culture for the business. But what I also love is that we deputized our employees. So you can ask me about this and I'll say this, but you could ask, some field sales rep and they would say the same thing. So we're just reiterating this messaging all the time, getting more people involved in delivering the messaging, deputizing them as culture leaders. Like it's the coolest place to be right now. Feels so easy right now.
Maybe it's hard. HR is hard work. I'm listening to you talk about like when you mentioned you have people calling you looking for, hey, can we work there? Like I know some of those people by name that are now there and it's so fun to celebrate that. But I'm thinking about, I was presenting at this event a little while back, and one of the things I shared with the audience of HR leaders, just like the ones listening into us right now, I said, listen, if you can find attract and keep people better than the competition, it becomes a differentiator for your company. If you can do it a
Yes.
lot better, you become a market leader. And that's kind of where
Yes.
you're talking about here. Like we have arrived at this point where people are now chasing us because of some of the things we've done there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a hard question. Okay, you had a
Please.
chance to build this up, and that was not easy to do, but you've had a chance to build this up from a foundation up. What
Mhm.
about someone who's already established and they have to pivot if they want to have a culture that they're proud of, a culture that really other people are going to be attracted to? What
Right.
advice would you give someone that this is all great for you, Amy, because you got to build this thing? I'm already standing on top of this pile of stuff. How do I adjust this? What advice would you give someone like that?
Well, Ben, I beg to differ because the company's been around since the 80s, and I
Okay.
happened to come on board and we happened to sit down and come up with this plan and execute on it. And that's how it happened. But it wasn't a new build, it was transformational. And I feel like the way that an HR person can get involved by talking to their executive team, it depends on what's important to the executive team, the board, and the stakeholders of the business as far as where they want the business to go, and then identifying what the people drivers and the culture drivers are that can help to get them there. Like, for example, if cost savings is really important, or if finding synergies is really important, or growing particular parts of the business is more important than other things, if revenue is more important than profitability, you've got to think about what it is that the drivers are and talk about what the people drivers will be to get you there, right? So for us, it was, we got to find the top sales talent because we need to make sure that the revenue engine is running. So how do we do that? We're going to go and we're going to talk to salespeople at other companies that we want to get seasoned talent from, and identify what do they really like about their company and their situation, and what do they really not like about it. Okay, what they really don't like about it, great, we know we do that better. Okay, let's double down on the messaging for that. So it's a lot of intel there, but it's also how you can influence, even from a data and KPI. I know you love data, Ben. Data and KPI perspective, and put those KPIs in place to show executives and the board how culture does move the needle, right? It does. If you can do things well, as from a cultural perspective, you're going to reduce turnover. A national average, which in my industry it's a little higher, at $18,500 per, just in fees and a little bit of lost bandwidth. Multiply that by the number of people that are leaving every year. You're clearly, there's cash savings in keeping great people. There's also cash savings in hiring the right people, clearly and obviously, in setting more efficient practices and hiring talent that is skilled, as opposed to hiring talent that needs to be developed. Eventually, you'll also see cost savings from both of those scenarios, by the way, if you mix them, which is pretty fun, and a fun kind of data look, Ben, which we should look into at a later date. But there's a lot that you can do transformationally, but I think it starts with alignment from an executive perspective. I feel like I've had a lot of success culturally because I come at this with the business focus in mind, right? How can we improve revenue and improve our cost model? We can do it by reducing turnover. Okay, what do employees need to be successful here? How do we attract employees that are coming for the right reasons? How do we make sure that management is aligned to that and they're not hiring people that are not aligned to our values and who will not be enhancing the culture going forward? Not people that are the same culturally, but that won't be enhancing it. And how can we make sure that we're being consistent across the business in that? Because that's like how you achieve success here. But lots of fun things.
Well, I was going to say that connection there you're talking about to the leadership, that direct line, that's that understanding of each other, not just me taking all your instructions and going and carrying them out, but this is a true back and forth sort of dialogue. You talked about two things earlier. I didn't get to all of them when I was writing them down as quickly as I could. But two of the things
I'm talking too fast, Ben.
no, you mentioned transparency, right? That's important for
Yes.
that piece of it. And the data you're talking about, sharing KPIs like that contributes to that. The other part of it that you mentioned was, hey, listen, do you want to work for those companies where it's like all politics and you got to do all these things to cover your rear end and you're always worried about something? You can go somewhere else because we don't do that here. That's not who we are. And those kinds of things, when you put that environment in place, leadership already is showing that they care more about the people, right? Because how they're going to drive the business results than just the result. Like you get that revenue by treating people like trash, not for very long anyway. You may get that short term, but long term, it's going to come back and bite you.
Yes, to be honest, as we're hiring new people that are coming on board, we're hiring people. And you can find people who also can execute. It is not a unicorn scenario. Like, this is possible. You just have to focus on it. And we feel like we built a foundation based on it. We hired a couple of very key hires that we knew were very strong people leaders. And they helped us to craft this messaging and helped us to perpetuate it across the business and make it okay to be transparent and okay to align to the culture above skill set even, right? We're looking for people who want to be here for the reasons that align with the reasons that we feel like make us great. So we're not willing to compromise on that. And so far it's worked out.
I'd like to apologize to the unicorns out there because Amy has said that you can't be a unicorn that is a people unicorn and high performance, and she should not have done that. So poor unicorns, my 7-year-old will be devastated by that, Amy. Okay, kidding aside, you have a pin that you're wearing on your what's that called? Jacket, shirt?
It's it's a shrug,
sorry.
if you will.
Okay, sure. Not a phrase I've never used or may ever. What does it say?
It's my people hero pin.
Hero.
So I am a people hero. At iSolve, we feel like all HR clients are people heroes. We have a people hero network where you can get online answers, not just to iSolve questions about our HCM business or our benefit services or HR solutions business, but answers from each other about trends at HR. And it's very unique to HCM. It's probably something, if you're not with iSolve, you've never heard of before, but it is really, really fun. And it's something that I get to participate in almost every day, which is pretty fun. But I also am a people hero because I'm an HR person within my own business. And we're one of our most complicated, craziest clients. We utilize all of our own software solutions within iSolve, which is also really unique. We like to drink our own champagne, which is fun. But I love wearing my people hero pen. It's really, really big here. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not branded because I believe in it so strongly, but also because I love pink. Like it just works.
Comes in handy. I don't think I've ever told the audience here this, but I've told you before. Like I came to the iSolve user conference. It's called Connect. It's an incredible event. First time I ever had come to it. I was the first time to travel really much after COVID. So I got there, was like getting ready to go, and I had not packed any dress socks. But thank goodness, the iSolve team had given away a pair of pink, beautiful iSolve branded socks. So I had some socks to wear, and everybody was like cheering because I was like wearing the pink. I'm like, I didn't have anything else, so I'm going to go with what I got here.
By default.
So had to make it all fit together. All right. So I've learned this again. I knew we'd have some fun here. So the people listening in here, again, HR leaders, they're people heroes like you, like I have been in my past career, and they're people that are trying to do their best work every day. If you're going to give them some encouragement, like it's been a hard time. We've become experts in things we never thought we would or wanted to be. Like, you know, thank goodness no more social distancing talk is happening in the workplace anymore. But there's other things they're being challenged with. Get the people back to work. They have to come back to the office or all kinds of other sorts of things. What encouragement would you give to our friends out there that are struggling, that are just trying to fight one more day? Anything you want to share with them to help lift their spirits?
I feel like find your internal motivation is really important. Like, why are you doing this? What do you really love about it? And then double down on those things. I love the human connection element. That will never go away for me. It's something that I preach every day, and I will continue to do that. And I share my energy, I think, freely with others, which is also really big. I feel like it's a good win for us from a cultural perspective. And I've also, that what I value, I try to hire individuals within my team to support me in these initiatives within the business, and even executives that share that value so that we can have a commonality and an alignment that is inherent. And it feels like we can do more, like 2 + 2 equals an infinite number in this situation. Like we have 2,500 employees, but it might as well be 1 million, right? We can do anything. And I think if I'm encouraging people around me, it gives me energy. That's my motivation. So find that thing that motivates you, double down on it. Because self-motivation is the only way that you're going to get through the challenges that you need to get through. Every day, HR people are asked to do things they've never done before. Pandemic, everybody looked at us and went, how do we do this? And we all went, like, we've been through a global pandemic before, right? Like, or wage rates are increasing. Like, how do we pay people a new wage rate that is exponentially more than what we've had to pay before? Like, how do we make this work from a business perspective? HR. And they're like, we're going to figure this out. Sit down and figure it out. There's crazy things that are happening every single day, and your ability to just look within yourself and make a choice quickly simply, efficiently, for the right reason for you, I think is going to keep you on track. And then bring people around you that are going to help to share that energy.
Tremendous. I wrote down in my notes there, like HR is the we'll figure it out profession. I think that's kind of that no one else wants or no one else can figure out. They'll find some answer to that. So,
Literally.
just like Amy's wearing her people heroes out there. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, my friend. You're a ton of fun. If someone wants to connect, I can probably link, I'll make sure and connect your LinkedIn profile here on the chat, but also obviously they can learn more about iSolved, all the good work that the team is doing there. They hear your joy, your excitement, your voice, and they're doing that for their clients. I've met many of them. They're doing some incredible work for all of them out there. So I'll make sure and tag iSolved there in the chat as well for everybody else out there. Amy, always great to see you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming up from HR Summer School shortly. Are you going to give them homework?
Homework. You always got to have homework.
Okay. It is summer school after all.
It's summer school.
Okay.
So homework for.
So I saw a lot of people saying, oh, I'd love a peace pen. Sorry, I got distracted by Sarah's comment about Ben and the socks and George the shoes. If you want one of the People Heroes pens that Amy was wearing, we have a supply over there, the iSolve team, and they're happy to share some of those out. We're going to grab 10 people that can do this. So the first 10, I'm going to mix it up. I'm going to change it on the spot. Okay. So the first 10 that can either name one shoe that I've worn. Oh gosh.
I'm going to give you 3 options. The first 10 people can name any shoe that I've worn over the last 5 years. Somebody who can tell me all of our HR Summer School Award winners. See the memory looks like there.
The Unity Awards.
Unity Awards. So there's 3 names you can choose. You got to have 3.
Okay.
And then number 3, in the beginning, I shared a peace acronym. I shared 2 peace acronyms. If you can give me one of the 2 peace acronyms, the first 10 people can do one of those 3 options. So either peace.
I can't keep up with this. All right. Peace
Unity
acronym.
Award,
list the 3 Unity Award winners.
Or name a shoe that George has worn in the last 5 years.
And because he made it so complicated, I'm going to make George go and look for that in the chat and keep up with that one. Make sure we find those. So such a good session. Amy, love and appreciate you, my friend.
Yes.
The audience was appreciative. And again, someone was like, maybe the People Heroes pen is now the new ranch dressing of HR. So maybe so. We'll see. George and I probably end up wearing our ranch dressing shirts at some point. Who knows? I'll have mine pulled out probably for tomorrow. So, all right, great stuff. We're going to transition over to our third session, and let me get things set. Our third session. So we've had a lot of inspiration, a lot of encouragement, some really cool ideas around HR. Our next speaker is a professional communicator. So he's going to talk about making decisions. He's going to talk about some of the things we have to do in HR and how to make the right call when it comes to it. So some good inputs, good practical advice in that. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with Matt Jones, because I took some good notes in it, and I think you will as well. Here we go. I know you're having so much fun here at summer school, getting lots of good takeaways, ideas, strategies, all those kind of things. And Matt is actually going to bring one of his favorite ones here for us in just a little bit. Matt Jones, welcome. Glad to have you.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
For sure. Yes. So you and I actually have been connected through Disrupt HR, an event that I run here locally. So some of you out there in the audience may run or participate at a Disrupt HR event in your local areas. But Matt and I connected because he's been a speaker at ours for multiple years and is perennial favorite for the audience there. So before we get to some of the fun stuff, Matt, we're going to talk about decision making and some of the key frameworks around that, how to do that better, maybe some of the problems we have around that. So take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. And Ben, as you said, it's been fun doing the Disrupt HR because I've gotten to speak on several different topics over the years. And that's a little bit about what makes me tick, is that I like being in a lot of different fields and learning a lot of different things. I've had a chance to do a lot of coaching consulting over the years for different types of companies and organizations, in addition to some personal coaching that I've done. And I'm currently doing executive communications for the U.S. Space and Rocket Center here in Huntsville, Alabama, and bringing some of those gifts into building the systems there and just kind of trying to help that organization be all that they can be.
That's thrilling. I love that. So you're one of those people, when I heard you speak the first time, I didn't really know you. We'd been introduced by another friend. And when you started speaking, I'm like, hold on, like I'm felt compelled to just listen because like you have some good things to share. So I loved your session specifically last year at Disrupt HR as well. I'd love to hear from you. Like, decision making as a bigger idea, bigger concept. What are your thoughts on one of the most important things that we do every single day, but probably haven't ever really given much thought to?
Right. So for me, the whole reason that I focused on decision making and learned that was that as I was working with organizations in particular, it seemed like the ability of the organization to thrive or die came down to the effectiveness of decisions that were being made, at whatever level that was. It might have been with the point leader and decisions they were making, or it could have been even on the front lines that people just were making bad decisions or didn't know how to make a good decision. So for me, as I was working towards that concept of how can I help an organization, a company, or even an individual achieve the things that they wanted, because usually people are pretty clear on what they want out of their business or life, but they're stuck. And oftentimes what I found was that it came down to decisions. And so I thought, if I can learn more about how people make decisions, why they make the decisions they do, and coach them and walk them through how to make better decisions, then I'm more likely to be successful as their coach or as their consultant. And they're more likely to have a positive outcome at the end and be happier with their life, their business organization, and with the time they spent with me.
I'm thinking about, I probably already made several decisions today, just in work, at home, like all the things I've done. So talk about what's first there. What's the first thing that you would do if you were going to work with someone who came and said, Matt, listen, I need some help with this, or maybe they don't even know they need help with it yet, but what sort of thing would you start out with?
Yeah. So a lot of times it is trying to figure out, where do they feel stuck? And that's normally my conversation. And I like to go back to a scene from My Cousin Vinny. I don't know if you remember that movie or not. Great movie.
Yeah.
Ride the tires, right? They talk about when you get stuck in Alabama mud, you can't go anywhere. But there's different types of stuck. There's sometimes that people do feel like they're expending a lot of energy and not getting anywhere at all. They're just full on, but no movement at all. There's other times people are stuck to where it's more like they're just running in a circle. They can tell they're moving and those kind of stuff, but they don't seem to make any progress, even though there's a lot of movement involved with it. And other times they're stuck and they're just completely paralyzed. There's no movement going on. And so I learned to ask about people being stuck. Where do you feel that stuckness in your organization or within yourself? And then oftentimes we could find that there was some decision that needed to be made that they just couldn't make. Mm-hmm. And it's either that they were afraid of the consequences, good and bad, that went along with making that decision, or they just simply didn't feel like they had enough information, which gets into some of the stuff we've talked about before, but they didn't feel like they had enough information to make the right decision to begin to move. And that's where maybe they're just paralyzed. I can't see the landscape to know what I need to know in order to be able to move. I just know that something's got to happen, but I don't know what needs to happen yet.
I love that you elaborated on that, because I wrote down in my notes here, what kind of stuck are you? Because so many of us think that it's a roadblock entirely, but maybe that, hey, listen, we made a decision and we got back to where we started again. We made a decision,
right.
We're making the same wrong decision over and over again. So it's not just, I can't make something to move forward, but I may be making a decision that's not taking us in the right direction, and getting stuck in that same loop and can't break free of it. So I'm glad that you brought that piece of it too, because I hadn't stopped to think about it that way, but I think that's a good call out for the audience, that sometimes we're doing that same thing we've always done, and we're getting that same result, and we want a different result, but we're not willing to make that change and do something.
Right. And especially because we're speaking to HR professionals here.
Yes.
So one of those things that drives in an organization, that drives things, is what can you defend, right? The most defendable position you can take. And so oftentimes you're not making the decision you think maybe needs to be made or go in the direction you need. You're simply saying, I've got to protect the organization or protect my job. And so I'm going to make the safest choice possible. And often in an organization, that's when you end up in that cyclical, never making any progress, is everyone is continuing to make the same decision they made before, because that's proven to be safe. And it's not until somebody steps in and says, okay, something's got to change, we need a different outcome, and then you're given permission to break outside of those safe choices, that you can begin to make some different decisions. But for most of, and we're not thinking about, again, that's, you have to ask somebody what their stuck is. Most organizations are doing that, and they've never even thought about it, because it's just our nature in jobs to be protective. And so, well, what's the safe choice is to hire the way we've always hired, to reward the way we've always rewarded, to do what, that's the safe choice. And so you just innately do the same thing over and over again. And you're like, I just feel stuck and trapped. We're not growing, whatever that is. And so that becomes that conversation for.
I remember vividly, I was sitting with the former head of HR for Nielsen, the big research company. And he said, hey, we're about to pick a company for payroll. We're going to pick this company. And I said, are you sure? And he said, I'm not going to get fired for picking them because this company over here picked them and they picked them. And so like they might not be the best, but at least I'm not going to pick someone and risk it all on someone else who may be more newer, innovative, like some creative approach. I'll pick someone everybody else picked just because it's the safe bet. And I was like, that still hurts my heart to this day to hear him admit to that, but saying I'm not willing to put anything else at risk for this.
Right. And people do that. Individuals do that. Your employees do that all day, every day.
Yes.
They learn quickly.
Sorry, I'm going to step on you there. One of the things you said a minute ago, used the phrase permission. And then earlier in the conversation, very early, you said about getting this down to the front lines. And I'd love to hear from you. How do we help flow this down, whether it's through permission, it's empowerment, it's something else, so that someone who is far removed from us is able to make that decision? Maybe in the HR context, it's a recruiter out there, or it's an HR business partner embedded in a business unit, but they're not sitting here around the rest of us. And so they may be a little bit separate geographically, distance-wise, but they still need to make decisions and feel like they have the authority to do that, or the right responsibility to do that. Talk about that a little bit.
Right. So one of the challenges that we have in a lot of our companies is that we're trying to decrease risk all over the place. And so when we have frontlines employees, one of the things that we believe that decrease risks is to basically give them a script on exactly how to do things. And so when you meet somebody, you say this, you do this, and we just give them this instruction guide. So the farther away people are from that top level leadership, the more direction they have on exactly how they need to carry things out, which is a loss of autonomy. And one of the things that we know working in the HR world is that when you put somebody in a position to where they simply have to do steps A, B, C, D, and E in that order over and over again, it's not a very engaging environment, and you typically have high turnover in those areas. And so one of the things that you can do to mitigate against that is giving them decision-making ability. But you have to do that within a box, right? So instead of giving them a script of A, B, C, and D, E, and E, what you need to do is draw a box for them about, this is the general area. These are the things I need to accomplish. These are our values, our parameters, our procedures you need to operate within. But other than that, you have the ability to make decisions on how you execute that. So for a frontlines employee, it may be, or say a recruiter, it's like, hey, this is the salary range, that you can offer somebody that position. And if your instinct and intuition, which we'll talk about in just a minute, if your instinct and intuition are that this is a person who's going to bring high value, you have the ability to go up or maybe even 5% over what that range is, versus going out there and saying, okay, this is the dollar amount you have, go find somebody with these specific qualifications at this specific salary range. Because at that point, you lose that ability to make decisions and feel like you have some sense of control over what you're doing and how you do it.
I'm imagining, like, you are completely correct on that. The farther out they are, the more instruction we have to give them, the more rote and routine the job feels, and the more predictable, which, again, Seth Godin is famous for saying, the more predictable a job is, the easier it is for me to automate it or outsource it. Like, so
right.
A job that's completely, I know at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, you're going to be doing this. I can find someone else in the world cheaper that will do that job than you will, or I can give it to an algorithm now these days. So the other piece on the other end of that I'm thinking about is when we ask employees in our research, what does flexibility mean to you? One of the top 2 answers is flexibility in how I get my work done. And so I get that question from employers, like, how do we give them autonomy? They've still got to be accountable for things. Like, yes, they do. And as you said that as well, Matt, like, they've got this box they've got to operate in, but beyond those sorts of things that are, this is your responsibilities, these are your outcomes we're looking for, you can have leeway in some other kinds of things that give you some more control, more choice, more flexibility in your work. And that brings that joy. As you said, if we take it away from them, if you give that back to them, that gives them some more joy in the work they get to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing with that is, when we write those scripts, it means basically we don't trust their decision-making skills, right? We trust our own, or this is safe. Here's the safe path. We want you to take the safe path each and every time. But at the same time, we're also using those frontlines people as kind of the entry point to see who can grow and become a better leader. And what's the main qualification for being a better leader? You're a good decision maker. So we rob them of the ability to develop that decision-making skill, or to prove they have decision-making skills. But yet that's our pipeline for how we're finding leaders who are going to grow up into being in decision-making positions. So we're really hurting ourselves in the whole process that we structure that. In trying to be safe, we actually are we are creating more risk for our organization.
Talk about the role of, you mentioned this a minute ago, instinct, intuition. Talk about the role of that within this sort of framework.
Yeah. So one of the things that caught my attention years and years ago, there was a book Malcolm Gladwell wrote called Blink. And it was this amazing book about this whole thing of intuition and what's going on with that one. And he tells a couple of different stories in there. It tells actually a lot of different stories about people in this moment that when they first encounter something. He tells one in particular where there's someone who looks at a piece of art, and all the experts, everybody's been looking at this art, they're celebrating the art, but this one person who's not as skilled as maybe an appraiser looks at it and goes, something's just off with this. Like this, the instinct was just off. And eventually they found out that it is a very well done forgery. But it was this one person who wasn't so into all of it that was able to see it. And he begins to write through his book, and he's such a great storyteller and author, that within all of us, there is this kind of this instinct that's there that reacts in moments. The challenge of that is that we've in the past kind of referred to that as this mystical, magical thing, this instinct or women's intuition or whatever that is. But over time, we've been able to learn through science and data that the reality is that our entire body, physical body, is just a collection of sensors and chemicals. And so what's happening is that those sensors within us and the chemicals are interacting to where there's something we're picking up on that's causing a reaction within us. The challenge becomes learning how to interpret what's happening within you, what that feeling is. Is that feeling a confirmation that this is a good hire? Or is this a feeling confirmation that there's something off with this person and this isn't a good hire, even though they look great on paper, right? So developing that intuition is really one of the most important things that we can do, especially if you're a high-level leader. I would encourage you on this one. And what I found and what I recommend with my clients is, and I'm going to say journaling, and people get kind of upset when I talk about journaling sometimes. I'm not talking about a dear diary. Today, we're not talking about that. But it really is where you're just recording over a long period of time. Here's what I was thinking or feeling in this particular situation. And you put as much down as you can on that. My practice is that every year on my birthday, I go back and I read through mine. And I'm using it as a way to teach myself, when was I right and when was I wrong? Which of those feelings were the ones to listen to and which was the ones to ignore? I have to become a student of myself and my own intuition in order to be able to make better decisions. And because all of us have had crazy things happen to us in our life, there are sometimes that our reaction to something is completely irrational. We know that, of course, the overused word is a trigger. There's something that triggers a reaction within us, but we need to figure out, is that a legitimate reaction and trigger, or is that an irrational thing? And one of the things we do need to do is that when irrational reactions and triggers come along, we need to learn how to identify those and dismiss those. Just because something makes us react a certain way doesn't mean we need to avoid whatever it was that created that, right? So it's just becoming a student of yourself. And what I have found and seen with my clients is that when you do that sense of journaling or recording or data collecting, whatever works best in your mental framework on that, you just write down, I was in this situation, here's what I was feeling, here's the decision I made, and then go back and asking yourself, how accurate was that? So when I feel that way, is that a confirmation thing? Did I need to lean into that? Or is that legit that I need to back away from that situation?
I think that self-reflection is so powerful. And so often we're so busy, we don't ever stop and come back to, hey, I made that decision. Was that the right one or the wrong one? I don't know if it's easy or not, but in the work we do, especially within HR, that loop on feedback is so long that I may make a decision today and not know for a year if it was the right one or not. We'll see if that was the right call, or that advice that I gave that leader to do this one thing with their employee. 6 months later, did they quit anyway? Or did they stick around long-term? What was the difference there? And so we don't always see those. And I love the idea there of saying, hey, put a little stake in the ground and come back to this later and just see did it work? Was it effective? Was it not? And you'll start to figure out, hey, that time that I felt this way, I made this decision, didn't turn out. So next time that I feel that way, I need to slow down, take a breath, maybe rethink that a little bit. So, okay. Any other advice you want to give to the audience here on making better decisions? They make a lot of them in the daily work they do, both again at work and at home. Anything else that you would want to share as a sort of takeaway or tool that they can use?
Yeah, I want to come back to something I actually mentioned that last Disrupt HR talk, and that was about Colin Powell, that he made this 40-70 thing popular. And I remember the first time I heard 47, I thought, isn't that something like a 20-80 rule or something? It kind of confused me, even the title of it. But what he said, of course, he had to make high-level decisions, a lot of high-level decisions that impacted global situations, not just himself on that. And part of what he pointed out was that he had learned as a leader that if you have about 40 to 70% of the information available to you, and there was about a 40 to 7% chance that it would go the way you wanted, you just need to go ahead and make the decision. And that kind of threw me the first time I read it. Now, since then, I've thought through it. So that averages out, 40 to 70% averages out to about 55%. So I'm like, man, that's about a coin flip at this point. Is that good? Is that good insight? But it really is, especially in this day and age, we are, again, back to the thing in our business and lives, we're always trying to make the safe choice. We've now come into society that says that if you have all the data available to you, you can make the safe choice. The problem is there's so much data out there and there's so much conflicting data that you can then become, again, stuck, like you're in the mud with the wheel spinning, just trying to get information. What's the right information? What's the best information? And so you can get trapped in that sense of, I need to learn more, or this conflicts, and you can get caught up in that and never make a decision. And so his advice is very wise from that standpoint of saying, if you're trying to get all the data possible, you'll never get that point. You'll never make a decision, and the opportunity will pass. Imagine finding someone you think is a great potential employee. You're like, okay, the resume looks good. Let's do background checks. Okay, let's do screenings here. Let's take them through some different training. And then you extend it off, and they're like, well, I've already taken a job over with this other person who didn't make me do all that, because they could tell from what, they knew that I was going to be a good hire. Like, we miss out on candidates regularly, the best candidates, because we're taking so much time to try and assess them in every way possible. Also, it frustrates them to like, do I want to work for somebody that is doing this to me? So his thing is, when you get enough data, which is probably a little bit over 50%, 50, 60%, okay, I know enough, and it looks like it's going the right way. And again, that's why I bring in the intuition thing. Your intuition saying, I think this is leaning the right way to where it's going to be a positive outcome for us. Just make the decision and move forward with it. And if you get caught up in that, I need more and more data, I don't want to make the wrong choice, I'm paralyzed, you're going to get stuck and you're not going to see the change that you want to see in your life, in your company, in your organization, or even in your family, as you're trying to lead your family and make decisions about the best things to do. So I would take that 47 principle and put that before you and say, you know what, no matter what role you're in, whether you're in a leadership, top level leadership, or whether you're front lines, learning how to make better decisions without feeling like you have all the information out there is probably one of the secrets to begin to make some progress in areas where you've been stuck, and where you're able to see some actually pretty quick change once you begin to make some decisions based on those concepts.
I love the conversation today, Matt. Thank you so much for making it relevant and practical to the audience here, for giving them some good takeaways and suggestions. Are you okay if we link over to your LinkedIn profile so they can connect with you and follow you after the events?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to engage with them on LinkedIn, just chat a little bit. And if there's something more I can do for you, I'd be glad to figure out, what that looks like and what kind of decision we could make about how to make that happen.
All right. Tremendous. Thank you again. To everybody else out there, hope you're making better decisions based on this. Got some good notes out of the conversation. Stay tuned for more HR Summer School coming right up. What?
I don't know. You always just make me laugh, man.
I make you laugh. Okay. It's a good friendship. What are you going to do? So you had a big thought there at the end. What was that one you just posted?
Yeah, I think we always talk about, obviously for me, culture is leading everything. And sometimes as leaders, creating that space and that culture of, feedback versus, I always call it feed forward. When it comes to mistakes, we always know what the mistake is, right? We know what the failure is. And I think some employees generally feel like, if I'm always going to have negative response because I made a mistake, I was taking a risk for the company, and I'm a big risk, big reward type of guy. I don't want no little risk, little rewards. I'm all in. But one of the things I learned is that we tend to try to feed forward is what I love to do, where we open up, open communication, open feed forward to where, hey, this is a mistake. What did we learn from it? How can we move better? And then what can I as a leader do for you to help you grow, to be able to make the next mistake? Because you make too many mistakes, what happens is that constructive criticism comes, and then the employee starts hiding their mistakes from their leaders. And so to keep them from hiding those mistakes, let's feed forward. How can we grow this thing together, moving forward, and get better together? And then what can we as leaders do to help support, provide resources?
As you're sharing that, I'm thinking, yesterday I was in Orlando for a client event, and I had my 13-year-olds with me, my twins, and they were showing this new VR headset they had for training purposes. And so they're like, girls, sit down. So they put it on, and they had to have a difficult conversation with someone in the VR scenario. This guy had blown up in a company meeting, had told people they were too lazy for taking time off, which is probably a conversation some of us have had with an actual manager. And they were like trying to figure out how to do that. They said, that was hard. I'm like, welcome to the world of HR. It's not as easy as, sitting in meetings and handing out cookies. It's a lot of stuff we have to do. Yeah. All right. So speaking of hard stuff, we have a great conversation coming up with George Rogers and, why am I forgetting? Is it Ralph Kellogg? Goodness. I saw Ralph in the chat already earlier, so I know you're here. So Ralph Kellogg, he's an HR leader, and he talks about mental health, the struggles there, the challenges there, some of the things that he's faced, because he's like, listen, we talk about this in HR. We're there to serve and support our people. But what when HR has some of those problems too? And who do we go to? So he talks about some of those different nuances there, has done a great TED talk on the topics. If you enjoy this, you can go and see that as well. So we'll go ahead and get in the conversation with Ralph. And then we're going to take a little bit of a breather, have a little bit of intermission. We're going to share some stuff. We're going to give some things away. Maybe George is going to come back through and we'll flag some of the ones who answered correctly on all the issues and everything else. And here we go with Ralph and George.
So I am excited about this session as well, and I want to get right into it. Ralph, if you don't mind, for our audience here, HR Summer School, our freshmen all the way up to our 50th seniors, can you tell just a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ralph Kellogg. I am the Vice President of People and Training for Lutheran Family Services here in Nebraska. Lutheran Family Services is the largest behavioral health facility in Nebraska. We're a statewide agency. I also own my own consulting firm, and because I love HR, I also am an adjunct professor at a local university because I just can't get enough of it. And over the last few years, I have began speaking on mental health, specifically telling my story with mental health and how organizations can support people who are navigating mental health issues within the workplace.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I really want to dive into this conversation because I think there's a lot of things that we can do, especially in regards to employee mental health and being able to engage, being able to notice what that looks like. It looks different from everybody. Some people see it as a smile that doesn't go away, but what are some ways that HR, we as leaders, can take a proactive approach to being able to identify and being able to also not just identify, but also connect with employees who may be at risk of burnout or maybe at risk of dealing with mental health issues before they, really escalate?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really starts with the environment and your intention with bringing people into the organizations. When you think of things like creating a strong employment brand and saying that you're employee friendly, family friendly, caring about the whole person, you need to make sure that translates into the work environment. That starts with understanding the people that you're hiring, making sure that you create an environment that's open, transparent, and compassionate. Talking about mental health within the environment or burnout with the environment, much like you would a physical ailment. When you look at your policies and procedures, is mental health mentioned? Do you talk about it in a way that's approachable and accessible for people? When you look at a procedure document, oftentimes you'll find things about, here's what you do if you need to call in for a cold or a physical situation. I always encourage HR professionals to also talk about mental health in the same way, honoring the fact that people may struggle with anxiety, may struggle with depression, may struggle with other mental health issues. Putting that in and saying that we care about and we honor that as much as someone who might have a physical related issue really gives permission for people in the organization to talk about those things and to embrace those things. And to understand that the organization will support them. In terms of dealing with burnout, although burnout is not recognized as a mental health issue or is not something that's covered under ADA, burnout can also lead to depression. It can also manifest itself in terms of anxiety and panic disorders and things along those lines. Again, when you're looking at your employment population and what you value as being important as an employer, you need to make sure that if you see people who are working longer hours, dialing in when they're at home, being online for longer than an 8-hour day, as a manager, as someone who works in human resources, Are you checking their vacation? Are you looking to see that everyone is taking vacation at least once a year? Are you really making sure that people unplug when they're on vacation? One thing that we do at LFS that I'm very proud of is that when people leave on vacation, we do everything that we can short of deactivating their access to ensure that they can't work while they're gone, because that's supposed to be their time. When you're thinking about burnout, when you're thinking about all the things associated with burnout, make sure that you're not just talking about it, but you're setting up an environment that really supports it. And that starts with policy and procedure. And then it also goes into ensuring you have a transparent environment and a compassionate environment to engage with staff so that they know it's okay sometimes not to be okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you said that I want to just kind of just talk about a little bit. There's that expectation. You mentioned being able to respect the boundaries of PTO when people are on vacation, and the pressure that employees do feel when they get an email just out of habit, because they see the owners, they see their leaders, their managers responding while they're on vacation. And so when it's time for them to enjoy their time with family or friends and their days off, is that added mental pressure, right? That my manager was responding while they're on vacation. So I feel the pressure that I have to do as well. Fear of XYZ, whatever those consequences may be. And sometimes there's not necessarily consequences, but it's just that mental add pressure when we see our leaders doing it. It's that, unwritten, unspoken pressure that we feel as employees that we have to do as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's important for us to set those boundaries that, hey, when you're on vacation, when you're dealing with people, the pressure that sometimes is felt when that email goes out and we don't respond, or if we do respond, what's the importance of setting those boundaries of our employees for our employees that they don't feel that type of pressure?
I think that's huge. And I'd love to say that I don't fall victim to that myself. Or I think anyone who works in America falls victim to, when I hear that ding on my computer, I immediately need to respond, regardless if I've been on vacation or I'm thinking of vacation, or even if it's after hours. I think the thing to remember is that people look at what you do and not what you say. So when you are leading a group of individuals, when you are implementing plans for people to take vacation, things along those lines, you have to abide by those rules yourself. So when you're gone on vacation, you really need to be gone on vacation. And that means you need to set expectations with people to say, I've gone fishing, I'm out of the office for the next 2 weeks, I'm not here, and really abide by that. I think the other thing that really is critical in the whole process is using positive accountability. If I happen to answer an email while I'm on vacation and someone sees that, they have the permission to call me out and say, aren't you supposed to be on vacation? Why are you sending an email in? Go enjoy your time. I'll be here when you get back. We don't really allow people to do that. Oftentimes people are applauded when they answer emails on vacation, or they respond to work requests or things along those lines. Well, that may be great in the moment. All it does in the long run is add to the feeling of burnout, add to the feeling of depletion on the part of the employee. And so in the long run, while you're getting a short-term benefit, in the long run, you're really going to probably lose a very talented individual, because no one can work at sort of that breakneck speed without any type of respite. So I think when we're thinking about what kind of an environment do we build, what kind of organization do we want, we need to begin talking about positive accountability to say, if we're really focused on well-being and we're really focused on viewing the employee as our most important asset, which every company tagline or in every company's literature, I've always read that the employees are their most important asset, then we need to treat them as such. And so when we see behaviors that are counter to what we want our employees doing, like unplugging during vacation or setting those boundaries, we need to call folks out. I just did it to my boss a week or so ago. He was supposed to be out on vacation, and he happened to be copied on an email, and he responded, and I said, you know what, you're supposed to be on vacation. I want you to enjoy your time. This isn't an emergency. I'll follow up with you when you get back. And I just didn't engage with him after that point. Now, if it was an emergency, he could have called me. Obviously, if it was something urgent, we could have connected, but it wasn't. And it was just my gentle reminder to him to say, you need to take your time too. Your mental health, your mental well-being is as important as anyone else's in the organization. So enjoy your time with your family.
That's so important. I want to encourage people to make sure that there is that culture. When we talk about creating cultures, culture of accountability, right? That's one of those things that we do, especially when it comes to, for us in our organization, we call our core values promises. So we have 5 promises. And one of those is to care. And so showing that I care for you when you're on your vacation is make sure I respect that time, but also showing that I care enough that I don't want you to respond, and vice versa, having that accountability for myself so that I'm able to feel the freedom that my team understands where I'm at and have that accountability. I love that you said that, Ralph, and really encouraging others to have that accountability with yourself, right? That we hold ourselves accountable to taking care of ourselves. We show up for others, but we got to be able to show up for ourselves and discipline ourselves. I want to talk then a little bit about that potential because there's consequences when we don't do those things, when we don't have the guardrails and or we don't adhere to the guardrails that are there. What are the potential consequences for organizations if we as leaders, and we know that a lot of things get thrust upon HR, so I'll say HR with this being HR summer school, but what happens in organizations if HR does not prioritize and leaders don't prioritize employee well-being? And they fail to establish that meaningful connection with individuals before they experience that burnout, before they experience those mental health challenges?
I would say one of the things that happens, and we've all seen this, is turnover. You will absolutely see people leave your organization in droves if you don't consider the impact of mental health or how their mental health and well-being can be adversely impacted by the work environment. And it doesn't necessarily need to be an environment where there's constant stimuli in the form of undue stress. It's just the day-to-day that we need to be mindful of, and the understanding that when you step away and you allow yourself the opportunity to sort of recharge, you can come back to the workplace with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh perspective, ready to dive in and contribute. Now, getting back to the core of your question, obviously turnover is one of the big things that you will see in organizations when mental health and mental well-being isn't accounted for. The manager is not taking the time to connect with their employees, to understand what's important in the lives of their employees, and to also understand that people are people. We're perfectly imperfect, and we come to the workplace with lives outside of our jobs. And the old adage of leave your personal life at the door when you come to work no longer applies, because many of us work at home. Many of us are dealing with responsibilities that our parents and grandparents didn't necessarily have when they were our ages, working in professional environments. And so people really do, like it or not, bring their whole selves to work each and every day. So when you're not acknowledging that, and when you're not acknowledging that people may be struggling, then you're failing to connect with that individual. You're failing to understand that you've got a human being here who's more than one-dimensional and who's more than just an employee. They're a person with things going on outside of the workplace. So it's very important, I think, not only for HR to be aware, but also to ensure that there's a relationship between the manager and the employee. The other thing that you may often see if people aren't taking care of themselves is a true hostility toward other people and the work that they do, which can result in safety issues. You can see people becoming frustrated with coworkers. You can see people who visibly display anger and resentment about their job or with other people. That can, manifest itself in a variety of ways. And you want to make sure that those topics are addressed, because it could be due to burnout. It could be due to things going on in the workplace. It could be a variety of factors, but sometimes that's what you see manifested. And then lastly, what we've all seen over the past couple of years is quiet quitting. People doing just enough of their work to get by because they are so disinterested in what's going on, or they're so disconnected from what's occurring that they no longer have the will or the effort or the desire to put forth to doing the job to which they were hired. And that is detrimental to the organization. So failing to understand that mental health is imperative, failing to make those relationships, whether they be from HR to the employment population or from the manager to the employee, will have long-term effects on the employment population. And you may not see it in terms of a mass exodus, but you probably will see it in a lack of engagement, definitely in quiet quitting. Increased absenteeism is also something to be on the lookout for. And then obviously, in terms of increased medical claims, if you're having people who are suffering physically because of their mental health or mental well-being concerns, those things can also have consequences for the organization in terms of increased medical expenses.
I love that you said that. One of the things that, and I know my friend Ben will do data real quick. We'll put on some data. When you're talking about the impact that it does have on our employees, one of the things that really stuck out to me in regards to well-being, we did a research study and pulled out some things on the well-being. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was 62% of the employees said they would perform better. Just think about this: 62% of people said they perform better and be more productive and engaged, not just with their work, but in their work, right? There's one thing to be in it, and then there's one thing to just check the boxes, you said, more than just getting things done. But they'd be more, perform better and be more engaged in their work if their well-being was being supported. Organizations that have that support, that are producing those opportunities. Another one that really was nearby was 63% said if their employer offered better health and well-being benefits, that they would be more likely to stay with that company. So people want to be involved, and we're seeing where employees are wanting to be where their well-being matters. Their well-being is being not just talked about, but it's there. What I believe is that we have a lot of employees today that don't want to be fixed. They just want to be heard. Don't try to fix me, right? Don't try to fix what I'm dealing with, but just hear me out. And part of hearing it out is, hey, being willing to provide those opportunities for me to be able to handle or deal with what I'm going through, whether it's mental health, whether it's the burnout phases. I want to ask you, in what ways can HR lead the charge in creating a supportive and empathetic work culture that values the holistic well-being of employees, thus preventing the burnout that is done and promoting mental health?
I think that HR can do a couple of things. So the first thing that I would say is look at job design within the organization. Do you have positions that where people could work remotely? We have a lot of organizations now that are open to the idea of employees working remotely instead of coming into an office. What I have found anecdotally is that when I give people the option of working remotely or coming into the office, and I allow them that opportunity to pick, it gives them a sense that they feel as though they're being cared about and looked at as an individual. What do I believe is important for me? Let me have the opportunity to choose. I will give you my best work if I can have a say so on what's involved. If you have an opportunity for people to work remotely, even if it's for a couple of days a week, allow them to do that, or allow them the opportunity to say, if I can work hybrid, that's great. If I need to be, in the office, that's great too. If there's some negotiation, or can I work fully remotely? Look at your job design and see what's possible. Secondly, create an environment where mental health is not something that's whispered about. Be aware of the fact that everyone is struggling with something. Everyone is bringing something to the table with their mental health every single day. And what I might be struggling with may be really completely something that, George, that you can handle with a blink of an eye. You might look at it and say, oh, that's no big deal. I can handle it. But it's all about perspective, and it's all about perception. And if it's a big deal to me, then it's a big deal, and it's all relative. So we need to create that space to say what's important to you may not be important to someone else, but it's important to us as an organization that you feel like you're being supported with whatever it is that whatever it is that you're encountering. Implement mental health days. We have sick days or PTO days that we provide to employees. Implement mental health days. Everyone, I would venture to guess, has had a moment in time where they have gotten ready for work and just said, I can't do this today. I am just not in a space where I can go into work. allow people the opportunity for one, you to call in and say, I need a mental health day without stigma or shame. Perfectly fine. You want a mental health day? Take a mental health day. In my organization, we provide individuals or employees with 4 mental health days per year. So they get 32 hours of mental health time per year. It doesn't roll over. You need to use it during the year. And if you don't use it during the year, you get 4 the following calendar year. But if you need to use it, you can use it and you can take it and you can call it what it is because it's written into our procedures as mental health days. The other thing that I would say too is if you have people in your organization who have lived experience with mental health issues, allow them to talk about it. As someone who leads the people function for my organization, I do talk about my mental health issues. I put it on LinkedIn, I put it in my blog that I struggle with these things. And when you're talking about, your point earlier resonated with me about, I don't want you to fix me, I want you to listen to me. That's something that I shared in a TED Talk that I did a few years ago. When I'm in the throes of a panic attack, you can see it. It's visible. I'm sweaty. My face is red. My heart is pounding. I look like I just came in from a monsoon. It's terrible. It's embarrassing. But when I have those issues, and I've had them a couple of times in my role right now, people give me permission to say, listen, it looks like you might be going through a little something right now. Why don't you take a few minutes and let's regroup? And that's all that it is. And I can come back in and we can finish up our conversation and move forward. So there has to be an acceptance within the organization of embracing people where they are and knowing that the more that you try to shame and stigmatize or hide the fact that people are struggling with mental health, the worse it's going to be on that person. So it really does go to the environment that you create in the organization. HR, for better or worse, is in the people business. So when we see things or we encounter things in the organization, it's really important for us to ask why. It's really important for us to say, what can we do better? And it's also important for us to reach out to those people to say, you've shared with me, Ralph, that you struggle with mental health and mental well-being in your life. What could we do as an organization to help you or to help others? What might be a path that we can take? So it's all about the dialogue, and it's all about ensuring that whatever we ask of employees or whatever we want employees to do, that we give them a forum to share those ideas and that we embrace them where they are.
That's so important. I want to continue this conversation, but with time, where can people connect with you and find out more of your story, follow you, whether it's website or LinkedIn? Where can they find you?
Yep, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm the only Ralph Kellogg that I know about LinkedIn. There may be more, and I'm not related to the Kellogg company. That's been a dream of mine all these years, but I'm not related. But I am on LinkedIn. I do own my own consulting firm. It's called Connections Point Consulting. And yeah, I have a TED Talk on YouTube about my own struggles with mental health and mental well-being called Act Now. So I'm out there and glad to talk with anybody on mental health and mental well-being in the workplace.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time here today for this great session. I know there's going to be some valuable things for our audience as well. So thank you so much, Ralph.
Okay, goodness. So Ralph, vulnerability, authenticity. Appreciate you for sharing your story. I know that when you and I, it's been like a year now since we talked. It was like right after summer school last year, I first connected with him and had a chance to hear some of his story. He sent me the TED Talks like, hey, do you think this story is compelling? I'm like, heck yes, it is. And so we can tell from the chat here, it's something that resonates with all of us as HR leaders because we have a front row seat to it in the workplace. But we also, as Steve Brown said a little bit ago, like we're the worst ones about making sure we're taken care of. Yes, we do figure things out, but we need to make sure we're also supporting and serving ourselves the things we need, because if we get empty, we can't pour into others, essentially. So the thing I was telling George a minute ago as well is that when we hear from EEOC Commissioner Keith Sonderling tomorrow, he talks about mental health and how big of an impact that is on the workplace right now and some of the things that employers have to do. So we heard from Ralph some of the things that are options, good plans, good paths ahead to support your employees. But we'll hear specifically like what we have to do legally, compliance-wise, in order to make sure we're staying above board as employers. So some good things from Commissioner Sonderling on that tomorrow. All right, let's get some stuff away real quick.
Let's do it.
Sound good? Okay, so George scrolled through the comments. He tried to grab, we said we'd do 10. We have a list of 20. So we're going to figure out how to make sure, get everybody those prizes. So let me get my screen shared back up. And okay, we have two things. So first up, we do summer school shirts every year. So this is your first year with us. We do a shirt every year, kind of a theme, something kind of fun. Last year it was feeding your HR soul. This year, someone told us recently, like, hey, people aren't a math problem. And so I was like looking for something fun and visual for that. So if you look at this, this is one size fits one. It's got a bunch of little math formulas all over it and little nerdy things like that. Imagine that. The data guy loves little formulas, but it's a fun shout out to people are not a math problem to be solved. They're a audience to be served. And so we have the chance to do that, the privilege and the responsibility to do that as HR leaders. Plus, I found out the hard way. When I joined an event a while back, someone's like, what is class of 21? Because it shows up here. And so all of our new summer school shirts are designed with summer school on top so that if you're on a Zoom meeting or something, it shows up right there so that you can show off what you're all about for summer school. So that's that. Those links are on the website if you want to check that out, and we'll make sure and post that later. We'll be giving some of those away as part of the event. The other piece we want to give away were some of the People Heroes pins. So take a screenshot of this. If your name is here on this, we'll work with the team at iSolve to get these out to everybody. Shoot an email over to Melanie. Her email address is here on the screen. And we'll work with you to get those all collected once the week is over with. It's a flurry of activities you can imagine. So we'll find out a way to get you a People Heroes pin and get you celebrated. All right. So a little bit later, we're going to be giving away some other things like this incredible book from this guy that I know named George Rogers called Champion Your Purpose. It's all about how to know what your purpose is and how to not just know it, but pursue it with passion. So I love this book. Great encouragement. And the last chapter is got a big surprise for everybody out there. And then another book we're going to give away is a much thinner book, by the way. George has a lot to say, a much thinner book.
Go figure.
Acronyms galore. This one's actually a kid's book. I'm going to put the screen down so you can see. It's a kid's book called I Want to Work in Human Resources. So we gave some of these away a few months ago at one of our events, and we still have some of those left over from Kelsey Beckfield. She's one of the people in our community. She wrote this book. She said, listen, if we're going to influence the next generation of HR, we need to start telling them about what HR really is. So it's kind of a fun way to share with your kids. If you've ever tried to explain to them, if you were in a career day and you're like, there's a firefighter, there's a teacher, there's a police officer, I'm in HR, and the kid's like, oh, what is that? So there you go.
Kids can't have cocktail parties, but we have like lemonade stands.
Yes.
So we can I will help the lemonade stand and talk about networking in HR.
Okay.
Some of the best parties ever.
There we go. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to our next session. I'm trying to keep us close to on time. George and I have fun, as you can tell, but we're trying to keep close to on time. We have 2 more sessions for the day. So first up, we're going to hear from Jason over at Bucket List. He and George had a great conversation about rewards, recognition, connecting those in and making those meaningful to our workforce. So great conversation there. And we'll wrap up the day after that with our conversation with, golly, I'm having a hard time with the agenda today, everybody. Grace Hickson. So Grace is going to knock your socks off in the best possible way. So we'll hear from Jason here. Great session for our team, our friends over Bucket List. Thank y'all for supporting the event. And then we'll wrap up with Grace, and we'll give some more stuff away. Sound good? All right, here we go.
Excited here. I am here with my good friend, Jason. Jason, if you will, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company and organization.
Yeah, thanks, George. So my name is Jason Lindstrom. On the personal side, I'm a dad. I have 2 amazing daughters. And for fun, I love having adventures with friends and family. And then professionally, I'm also the CEO of a company called Bucket List Rewards. Bucket List is a rewards and recognition program, and we're on a mission to help companies build the best cultures in the world. What we've seen is when you recognize and reward staff, you can lower turnover more than 40% and really drive up employee engagement. And when you look around, a lot of the best companies in the world have a recognition program, whether that's the Google or the NFL or NBA or RBC Bank, just to name a few. And we help companies implement these programs more effectively and cheaper than they could on their own.
Yeah, I love this conversation because culture is something I'm very passionate about. Can you tell us a little bit about culture, what it looks like, in your organization at Bucket List? How do you define it? What does that mean to you and your team?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And since we're in the HR tech space, we've tried to be really deliberate about building a fantastic culture. And I'll run you through just kind of tops of the waves, some of the things we've done. We've been really deliberate about building good, well-defined company values. We also have a really strong vision that's alive and well in the organization. For example, we don't share the vision when somebody joins the organization as a part of the interview process. We send the vision in advance. We ask people to read it, and we ask for them to call out a couple of things that they like from it prior to the first interview. So right from day one, people get a sense of where we're going, and hopefully we're able to build excitement with them. And it's pretty cool. I think a lot of these investments have paid off. We've been recognized as one of the top 50 best companies to work for in Canada for 2 years in a row. We're constantly surveying our team members, asking them how likely they are to refer a friend or a colleague. And we scored a 9.6 out of 10. And our revenue growth has been in the thousands of percentages over the past 3 years. And maybe like the best way to describe the company culture is just with a short story. Last summer, we did a company-wide retreat where we flew everybody into Whistler, British Columbia. And at most companies, when people meet up, they'll shake hands. But at Bucket List, when people are arriving, when they're getting off the buses, everybody is hugging each other or high-fiving. And it felt way more like a wedding than a company retreat. There's a lot of really great friendships here. It was so much fun, and some great, obviously, good conversations, good strategic takeaways as well.
That's awesome. I'm a hugger. I went down south, so I'm born and raised in Indiana, moved down to Georgia, Tennessee area for the last 6 years, although I'm back home now. So a lot of travel, but one of the things I love, the Southern hospitality and or Southern frustrations, but one of the things that I learned down there is that it's all about the hug. If you have your hands like, if it's out, that means you want to hug. And so I'll become a hugger. I think that's incredible that you do that. There's a lot of scientific proof, especially, an 8 to 10 second hug or 20-second hug, what it can do to the morale of a person and individual. So making that connection, whether it's a handshake or a hug, is something that is pretty cool and exciting. You talked about a lot of good things, and one of the things that we hear, especially in the space, and not to be the Debbie Downer, but there are some challenges. We talk about the positivity of what culture can do, the engagement aspects, but a lot of times we don't discuss the challenges. I want to discuss some of those challenges because there are some challenges that I see, and I'm interested in what you see in HR teams prioritizing these days in regards to some of those challenges within the workplace.
Yeah, no, again, like a fantastic question. And I've had a chance to chat with like tons of HR leaders over the years and over the weeks and months. And a couple of recurring themes that come to mind. The number one, or the top one I've been hearing, is organizations want to maintain or improve employee morale and engagement. And it was funny, I've been picking up this vibe from the people I meet with, but I recently read in a study from SHRM that 80% of HR leaders rank this as one of their top priority items for them to solve or for them to be thinking about. And the second really big trend I've been hearing a lot about is organizations are keen to retain top talent. It's funny because this is an important theme now, but when I think back over the years, this is always a top theme. Like if you talk to any like CEO or people team, like everybody hates to lose a top performer. And it's super interesting. Like if you dig down, scratch below the surface, like in specific industries like healthcare, for example, they're still experiencing really high turnover rates due to a lot of labor shortages. For example, hospitals have an average turnover of around 22%, which is pretty high. Like if you run the quick math on that, hypothetically, a hospital would lose their entire staff in 5 years at a 20% turnover rate. So anyways, those are some of the themes I've been hearing about these days that seem to keep bubbling up and are top of mind.
Yeah, retention is a huge aspect. Can you talk a little bit about the positivity of the culture? Some of these challenges that we're facing. How can culture, how can keeping employees engaged? We talk about the recognition and rewards. What does that do when teams are working with bucket lists? Why do teams use bucket lists and the impact that they see as an outcome?
Yeah, recognition is super interesting. One of the top reasons people quit is due to lack of recognition. I mentioned earlier that a lot of CEOs hate to lose like the top performing VP sales or a great salesperson or a fantastic software engineer. And lack of recognition is one of the biggest drivers for people quitting. So statistically, 79% of employees who quit their jobs claim that lack of appreciation was a major reason for leaving. So, and it's no surprise, like if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like kind of a psychological explanation of human motivation. Right in that middle tier is everybody has a desire to be loved and appreciated. So everybody wants this. People quit if they don't get it. And then where it gets even more interesting is a lot of companies are just simply not good at recognition. More than half of Americans say they did not receive any recognition from their employer in the past year. So people want it. Companies are good at doing it. And recognition is a fantastic way to fill that gap. And then lastly, when it comes to employee recognition and rewards, it's also one of the biggest drivers of engagement and job satisfaction. So it's not just about lowering turnover, but when you thank somebody, when you recognize them for great work, you lift them up. You can create these hero myths inside of your organization. People want to model and emulate the stuff that's being recognized and rewarded. So it's a good way to build a fantastic culture. And then maybe a couple just really quick stories. You asked about the pain we solve, and it's lowering turnover and driving engagement. But when it comes to impact, like we've seen some really significant results when people roll out a well-designed rewards and recognition program. For example, we work with a healthcare company called Home Instead, and we helped them roll out an employee rewards and recognition program. They did peer recognition, manager spot bonuses. And after rolling the program out, we helped them lower employee turnover more than 40% in some of their senior care homes. And another way, kind of a more fun, positive impact, when you reward an employee and you give them a really personalized recognition and a really personalized reward, that's a fantastic way to make somebody feel special. Just for example, we always encourage our clients to reward employees with personal rewards, but also to take care of their families. In one organization we work with called Vulcan, they do a great job of this. Over at Vulcan, one of their employees happened to love baseball. They lived in the Seattle region, and we sent this dad and his son to a Mariners game. I had a chance to chat with the dad afterwards, and he said it was one of the best rewards he's ever received in his life, not just at work, but in his life. And it's no surprise. You just take good care of people, and they absolutely 100% will respond with loyalty and passion.
That's incredible. I always think about, the importance of leaders really connecting with their team, knowing, hey, what does Jason really enjoy doing? How does he love spending his time? What's his passion? How does he like spending his time outside of work with his family or his friends? What are some things and so when I think about that and I think about bucket lists, obviously the name speaks for itself. I'm thinking, what's in my bucket list right now? What would I like to do as a reward? I think it's so powerful. The relationship aspect of it is what truly impacts me, seeing leaders truly engaged to the point where they know, in a sense, we talk about love languages or, that passion of their teammates, to be able to recognize them and not just say, hey, here's some pizza, and not know why the pizza's here, but really engaging and say, hey, here's something that I know you're very passionate about. And because X, Y, and Z, we want to do this for you. What can you give us some top tips that you have for leaders that are watching today regarding employee recognition? Because that dynamic of that relationship to where, hey, this is something that I know that they're passionate about. This is a bucket list item for them, and their hard work, their performance has been remarkable. Or, I see it, they're struggling. It's not sometimes the great things that they do, but man, I know that this will help them get out of the funk that they're in. They're down and out. I want to reward them because I know that their potential is great. And I want to see them get to the next level and maybe recognize some things that they've done in the past to help them get out of a struggle. Can you give us some tips for leaders on the employee recognition side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll kind of maybe start by talking about what you mentioned, the importance of that personalization and making it meaningful to the recipient, because there's the recognition side and the reward, and they both matter quite a bit. When it comes to the personalized rewards, like you can do cool, bigger rewards, like you can assign a big budget for a reward, but it doesn't have to be big. It's all about what you said earlier, making it personalized and meaningful to the recipient. So there's a lot of no cost, low cost rewards that can really resonate with employees. Some playful ones, maybe fun ones, are like the CEO could call an employee's mom, like that might matter to somebody. Maybe it's a half day off. In healthcare, giving somebody some time off and going to the spa to be pampered can be really meaningful. Inviting people to a quarterly planning session can be great. I work with one girl, our director of demand generation. She happens to love donuts, this specific donut called Tim Hortons. And like, I can send those to her, and I know it's good. That'll knock it out of the park for her. And like, it's just making it personalized can be so meaningful to the recipient. In terms of like rolling a program out, just something to keep in mind that's super important is like what gets recognized will get repeated. So if you recognize people for living company core values, you will 100% see those core values being lived more frequently. With our platform, typically we make it mandatory to recognize somebody for living a core value. And normally within about 30 days, an entire organization will know your core values by heart, which is awesome. That's what you want people to have, is an awareness of the company values and for people to be living them. Also, an important tip with employee recognition is one of the best ways to roll it out is something called peer-to-peer recognition. It's really hard if you leave it just to managers to recognize all the good work. You might have people out in the field that are doing some amazing stuff, working long hours that managers may not see. But if employees can recognize one another, there's going to be a way more recognition and also a way higher engagement level in general. And then one final tip, as we were mentioning earlier, is just the importance of rewards. They'll really boost the overall engagement with the program, and you'll see a lot more recognition. And then lastly, don't forget to measure it. A lot of companies have the best intentions in mind. They'll roll a program out, maybe doing it manually in Google spreadsheets, and they'll start with a bit of a buzz, and then it'll decline, and then it'll go to low engagement or zero engagement. A well-designed program should have really high participation levels for many months and years. So those are just some top tips that I could share with the audience today.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have a research study that we've done called PEACE, Performance Engagement and Culture Enablement. And one of the things that stuck out there for employees that recommend their employer as a great place to work, 6.5 times more likely to say that the company provides opportunities for recognition and appreciation at their work. And so it's vital when it comes to that connection to becoming a good place to work, where people want to be there and be connected. And when they have that connection and recognition, they're 12.5 times more likely to be comfortable with giving feedback or even discussing things with their supervisor and manager. So we talk about ROI a lot, and sometimes ROI gets stuck in our head as a monetary value. When it's about how we engage with our employees, where employees feel recognized, they feel appreciated and accepted and respected, right? That psychological definition of belonging, where they want to stay and be a part of a company. And I think about the aspects that brings. Sometimes the ROI is that people are showing up and they're happy. They're showing up feeling appreciated. They're showing up feeling that I've been valued by Jason, my leader. And it goes beyond monetary value, that the fact that Jason recognizes and appreciates me and is engaged with me on this recognition platform is so powerful. I want you to share a story. And I know we talked a little bit before this, and you have something you want to share, but I want you to share the story and just give some feedback to our audience that's on your heart or your mind right now.
Oh man, I'll share just an important one about the importance of taking action on this topic. We always recommend when we roll out a program like this to have senior managers recognizing staff as a part of the kickoff. And I remember being down in Pennsylvania at a client site and having a senior leader, the CEO, recognizing staff going around the room. And he's recognizing a bunch of people. And one of the people who's recognized actually started crying. And afterwards, I approached her. I'm like, hey, I noticed you're crying. What was going on there? And she's like, I've been working at this company for 7 years, and that was the first time somebody said thank you to me. And it's not just that company that's experiencing that. I guarantee every company has top performers, amazing people who are flying under the radar right now who need to be appreciated and recognized. And if you take that moment, it doesn't have to be through a platform. You can do it verbally, via email, via instant message, on the fly. Like if you're a conscientious manager and you recognize them, you're going to lift people up, you're going to build a better culture, and you can start today, because everybody has people like that in their organization. So take action, get started, do something, and don't forget to say thank you. It's like one of the most powerful management tools we have in our toolbox.
The simplicity, right? Something that we think is just normal becomes abnormal in a lot of places, and recognizing those just simple words that some people don't. They just want that appreciation of thank you. Goes a long way. And so it doesn't have to always be big, sporadic, huge ordeal. Sometimes a simple pull you to the side, thank you. But that's another thing. I want to ask you one more question, because this comes up a lot. How do we know? How do we figure out, George may not be a group setting appreciation type of person. Sometimes we have those who are private, very introvert. You have your extroverts that say, hey, I want the spotlight, thank me in front of everybody, so I'm recognized. How do you balance a team that, obviously have a group of individuals that are all different? Some people like the, private appreciation. Some people like the exposure to be appreciated from the other groups. How do you encourage the leaders that are watching today and the students that are watching here at HR Summer School to make those approaches as a leader or a manager of their position, and connecting with their employees and teams on that matter?
Yeah, it's another great question. There's two ways to do it. You can just simply ask your employees, but maybe a more scalable solution that's good for a small company. But a more scalable solution for big companies is to survey your staff. And maybe as a takeaway, we can send some sample survey questions. But it's important to ask things like, as you mentioned, do you like public recognition or private recognition? Because people have absolutely have different preferences. You don't want to make mistakes. Somebody's like maybe a software engineer, a little more private or introverted, and you call them out publicly in maybe an all hands meeting in front of 200 people to recognize them for their good work. That'll create a lot of stress in their lives. You don't want to do that. It's important to survey staff, find out how they like to be recognized privately or publicly. And then also in that same survey, you can ask them how they want to be rewarded, like what matters to them. You're talking about the 5 love languages earlier. You can find out not just what their love language is, but also exactly how they want to be rewarded, whether that's donuts, time off, or getting to hang out with the CEO. So you're able to really personalize the recognition as well.
Yeah. Something that one last stat, and I know Ben's probably giggly over this right now, and I'm sharing all this data, but something that I feel like really connects with Buckless in that piece research was workers are 2 times more likely to be happy with their jobs with no desire or plans to quit when they have adequate opportunities for their contributions to be recognized and appreciated. And so another reason why recognition is so important. We talk about ROI. Retention is a huge ROI for a lot of people. When you're keeping good people and good staff because you're giving them opportunities to contribute, to be recognized and appreciated, it goes a long way. Jason, if people want to connect with you, those who are in our audience today, we appreciate your time here. But if they want to connect with you, where can they find you? Connect with you online, social media, website? Could you share some of that information?
Yeah, great. And I'm more than happy to connect and help people. So if you're working through a retention or recognition strategy, or have some challenges with employee morale, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'll send an email that can be shared with the audience with the key takeaways from today's conversation. And I'm more than happy to share resources, answer questions directly, or put you in touch with somebody on my team. And we also have a rewards and recognition playbook that I'm more than happy to share and send out as well. And of course, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love meeting new people. I love helping companies, especially those that are interested in building good cultures.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Jason, for the session. And I'm sure our audience are loving these comments that you're making and insights that you're giving. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, goodness. Yes, I was loving the data. I didn't giggle, to be fair, but I did love hearing some data, hearing some numbers, hearing some encouragement and reminders about why it's so important for us to be using recognition as a way to connect with our people, to remind them of things we're doing, to recognize it, so they repeat it, all those kind of good things. Good stuff. All right. So we've got one last session for the day. We've got a bunch of giveaways and stuff all piled up. So thank you, Jason, for the team. Again, we were kind of laughing over here too. Like when I've talked to Jason before, I forgot he did that, and I did not prep George. So he's like, he loved the little thumbs up from Jason. So that's a fun little reminder that, hey, even with a virtual, sometimes you miss some of the cues that you get from someone in person. Like, oh, like, yeah. So he's like making sure you get that he's getting what you're picking up, what you're laying down. I think that's what the kids say, or maybe, I don't know.
We said that when we were younger.
Yes. Okay. I am
catching up slowly.
Oh boy. All right. So one last session here. We're going to hear from Grace Hickson about career courage, how to kind of make your mark, how to stand up for yourself in HR. It's some really good, encouraging things. And I am so excited to let George hear this one because she is a firecracker. And so Grace, let's hear from you, what you have to share there. Here we go. I know you're enjoying the sessions here at HR Summer School, and I am so excited because I don't always get a chance to meet some of our speakers in person in real life before I have a chance to record with them. But actually, Grace and I had a chance to meet a few months ago now in Atlanta there for an event, and she was just like on fire. Could hear her passion in her voice. So we chatted a little bit. I was like, she's got to come back. She's got to come back and share that with all of you. So Grace, so excited to be here with you and look forward to a conversation.
It was such a pleasure meeting you at that conference. The information that I learned there was valuable, and the connections that I made there were essential. So I'm so excited to be a part of this, and I'm looking forward to inspiring other people to make HR their final career choice.
Ooh, goodness gracious. I love that. I love it. Okay. So before we get into some of the fun stuff, we're going to talk about having courage in your career, pushing back on boundaries, those kind of things today. But before we get to some of that good stuff, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Okay, well, my name is Grace Hickson. I work in HR, and I have done so for the last 20 years. Over the last 20 years, I've been a recruiter. I've been an HR BP, a HR manager, a HR director, a head of HR, head of people development, a business administration person, a benefits administrator, you name it in HR. If it was adjacent to HR, I wanted to understand and learn the overlap. So I spent the last 20 years really understanding what HR was, the rules and regulations, becoming certified with HRCI to be a PHR, and understanding how the PHR, the SPHR, the PMP, and the MBA, I know that's a lot of acronyms, actually play in the real world, because everyone always has encouraged me to get education, but practically I needed to understand how they overlap and when was the best time to go get these things.
Wonderful. And now you've gotten this collection behind you, right? Helping you to see the world on different lenses, different approaches, different perspectives there. I think that's super, super incredible. So what I wanted to ask you to start us off, just to kind of kick us off broadly, is, as I shared with the audience a minute ago, when you and I were chatting a little bit, I got to hear you talk about how you push back, and I saw someone else come up that knew you for a previous job, and like they were like, oh, like you were a person who got me fired up in the best possible way. So I'm hoping you'll talk with the audience for just a minute about that, because I think that, I don't know if we call it career courage, what we want to call that, where you're willing to kind of push back against boundaries, have a perspective and stand for it, those kind of things. Talk about the importance of that and how that's helped to shape the direction you've taken so far.
It's definitely career courage. It's not easy to be the lone voice in a sea of loud voices, to be the long, almost soft voice saying, no, we won't be able to do that like that. No, that's completely illegal. That's hard to do. That's hard to be the person in the room that says, we have to create a different framework for this to actually do what you want it to do, for it to be what you want it to be. You have to be the culture person. And that is a train that HR has to make sure runs on time. And it's essential to have the decency, that I would say, to make sure that that is something that you take seriously and you do no matter what every day. I call it just being decent. I treat everybody how I want to be treated. I look out for everybody how I would want someone to look out for me. I think that that is a fundamental that you learn when you're a child, and you just kind of take it with you throughout the course of your lifetime and career. I translated it into HR because I was always kind of a bossy child. I wanted what I wanted when I wanted it. And I am named after my great grandmother. So I would take her mail and open it, and she was like, you don't know how to spell your last name, do you? I was like, nope, but I know what my first name is. And she was like, yeah, we have the same first name. I was like, no, your name is Nanny. And that's, if the mail doesn't come under Nanny, that the mail is not yours. And I'm bossing her. And she said, no, I have gray hair. And gray hair means that I'm not one in charge and everybody does what I tell them to do. And I said, well, you do everything I tell you to do. So I must be in charge. And she said, no, that's not the way it works. So I told my mother, and I said, Nanny's not cooperating. She's not doing what I told her to do. And she was like, no, Nanny has gray hair. Gray hair trumps everything. You have to do what she tells you to do, because that's the hierarchy. So that was my first lesson. And you have to be responsible for the way you treat people. You have to be responsible for what you bring to the table, and you just treat everyone decently. What I found over the course of my 20 years is that sometimes managers get away from what's decent. They forget that the culture is built on convincing people to want to work there. People, and it's true. I've never left a job because it was a job. I left because of the people, the circumstances. As HR, there was no one for me to go to. So I like to be the home and the place where people feel comfortable to come and say, hey, this isn't working for me. And no matter where I've ever worked, if you say and mention Grace Hickson, they will say, she's fair. She's fair to everybody. I listen to everybody because everyone deserves to be heard. Now, there are some people who are just totally afraid of HR. They grimace when you say hello to them. You still say hello. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Be decent. You speak to everybody you like, speak to the people you don't like. You treat all the people, you give people who you like the benefit of the doubt, give the people you don't like even more benefit of the doubt. Treat them even better, because at the end of the day, there's going to be some type of bias that's used against them, knowingly or unknowingly. So if you treat everyone at that standard of decent that I was saying, you'll catch all the outliers and you'll be able to provide a better culture and structure, which will give you that decency, that goodness that convinces people to stay and work for you and work hard for you and keep and build your brand.
It's so fun to hear you talk that way about this, because the next question I was going to ask you didn't know what it was going to be, but you've already answered it with how you just shared that. So I was going to ask you, okay, being courageous in this way, does this mean it just benefits you? It helps you navigate through your career, it positions you properly, all those things. It probably does those things, but I was going to say, is that at the expense of the people or at the expense of the business? But you really brought out how this is not just to benefit you. This is not just to make you feel good about yourself, but every person there knows you're fair, you're honest. I'm going to treat you the best way that I can, right? Sometimes hard situations happen. Sometimes I've got to tell you something you don't want to hear. But because I've been good to you all this time, because I've built this history with you of treating you the right way, when I have to tell you something that's hard, they're more likely to hear it. They're more likely to listen to you, because there's not this, well, Grace is she's always hard to get along with, or she's the typical HR person. She's always stays in her office, never meets with anybody, never says hello to anybody. Like those kind of things are easy to get a stereotype around HR, but you break all that down. There's a lady I interviewed on one of the very first HR summer school events ever. And one of her sayings that stuck with me all that time is stereotypes break down in proximity. So the closer we get to someone, the more we see that they say HR is like a bunch of old, gray hair ladies that tell everybody no and like push people around. For my friends out there with gray hair, I love you anyway. I'm getting my own and growing in. So, but that's not all HR is. It's about how do we serve? How do we help? How do we empower you? How do we support the culture? You're talking about, love the culture train analogy there. How do we bring those things to bear? Because I think that's where the real value comes from for HR, is not just doing the hard stuff, because everybody knows us for that, but doing the things that are going to bring out the best performance, bring out the best excitement in our people. You talked about some of those kind of things in your conversation already so far.
Well, thank you. You inspired me to be the best version of me.
Oh, well, I'll take that high five there virtually for sure. Okay. So for someone out there listening here that says, okay, well, goodness, Grace has already in the last 7 minutes got me fired up. I'm excited about hearing about this perspective and this approach, or someone new in their career potentially, or someone who maybe has lost a little bit of that luster, a little bit of the joy they got from HR. What advice would you give them? What sort of things do you do tactically, strategically, that they can put into place in their own career and their own path and their own company to approach the world the same way you do?
All right. Well, this is the first part is for the newbies. If you're new to HR and you have no idea what to do, first thing first, you have to get a mentor. You have to get someone who knows the ropes, who knows the way to San Jose. Like the song, you have to know the way to San Jose. If you don't know how to get there, you're going to really take a long time. And at the beginning of my career, I didn't have a person who I could call and say, hey, I have this really challenging issue. And I was working with unions. So I have non-union and union experience. I have manufacturing and government experience. I was able to develop those things because I had to go in and create connections and relationships and really make it beneficial for everyone, so that everyone had a chance to be the subject matter expert and everyone had a chance to be the learner. So if you're at the beginning of your career, you have to create those relationships, do any type of training like the summer school. All those things will become essential in the course of your career, because you develop new ideas by being exposed to new ideas. Now, if you've lost that love and feeling for HR, if you are not where you want to be and you're trying to aspire to be more, and I know you're looking at these job descriptions saying, okay, I've been a generalist for 7 years. When is someone going to give me the opportunity to be an HR manager? Change your framework, change your industry. Maybe you are looking at things from a box. Okay, well, you need to be more 9 points. You need to be more 6-dimensional, like being Big Bang Theory, 3-dimensional chess. You need to think outside the confines of the board you're on. When I was originally in my career, I did retail, and that's all I did. And then I had the opportunity to become a little bigger and go into PEO. Well, then that was totally outside my framework. And then I got all of this experience in all these different industries. And I just don't believe in saying no. And I know a few of my mentees will remember this key thing that I tell them. A lazy person in a different department is like it's everything to me. Why? Because that means I'm going to learn how to do payroll. And that's how I learned how to do payroll. We had a person in finance that didn't want to do it. They went on vacation. I took it over. I integrated it into HR processes and I made it my own. Well, people say, well, that's not HR. It's not HR, but it goes with HR. And when things go together, they work more fluidly together. And then I went into policy, processes, and procedures. Well, why would I go into policy, processes, and procedures? Well, I went into policies, processes, and procedures in order to ensure that my onboarding was better. I wanted to make sure that people understood their jobs and their duties and what was expected of them. I found that people would onboard, they would learn about the company. No one ever asked me when a company was started or why the name of the company was that name. I've never been asked that. But that's the first thing that they teach you in onboarding. It doesn't matter. How do I do my job? What do I need to do not to get fired? What do I need to do not to get on someone's wrong side? What meetings don't I need to attend? Is it okay to be late? All those rote kind of things when you're learning and you're just starting out. No one ever told me I needed to have a 30, 60, and 90 day. And then all of a sudden someone walks into my office and like, well, what have you been doing for the last 30 days? And I went into a panic, like, been doing whatever you told me to do. And they were like, that's all? You're just letting the day happen to you? And then I was like, okay, I will never start a job again without on my first day developing a 30, 60, 90 days. So if you're in the middle of your career, you're trying to figure out a way to transition, establish what you want to gain out of it, look at different job descriptions, and then start aligning yourself and your skills to that job. If it's more education, start getting more education. Start figuring out a way to inspire yourself. And what I did was start learning about different benefits, because that just was my world. When unlimited PTO came out, I was super excited. When 6% 401k match came out, I was super excited. When equity came out and people started putting it in their job descriptions, oh my goodness, it was the best thing in the world. It so excited me. So whatever your passion is in HR, figure out what's going on that's new and make it a part of your new field of vision. If you are advanced in your career and you are trying to figure out, hey, I have maybe 10 years left, what do I need to do? I would say you need to go towards more people operations. What does that mean, people operations? How is that different from HR? Well, people operations is a focus on productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency. That means now you need to get back to your HRBP roots and talk to people. You need to make sure that the departments are talking to each other, that they are cross-functionally being trained. Are you really adhering to your budget? Do you have processes that don't make sense anymore? Do you have an HR system that is really old and you need to be upgraded to a new one? Those skills that you will develop will set the stage for the next 10 years, making you become more productive, more efficient, and more effective in your overall use of your time, which will make everything easier for you to do more efficiently, which will give you a better overall scope of work when it comes to telling the next person that's succession planning behind you, hey, this is how we do it, and this is why we do it. So I hope that that has inspired somebody to kickstart the next stage of their career, because whenever I'm down, that's what I do.
I love it. Goodness. I have a question for you, kind of tie back into some of that there. I love the different approaches you took there across the entire audience. So everybody here listening in just got something from Grace, regardless of where you happen to be in your career. One of the things I wanted to go back to for a second, though, if you don't mind, is that 30, 60, 90. When you're talking about how to have that plan, how to think about that from the beginning, any advice for someone? Because you could even do that now in your career. Say, hey, listen, I've been kind of aimless, just drifting. I want to make a plan for the next 30 days for something. I want to build a new skill. Maybe I want to pursue Grace's footsteps. I want to have another set of letters after my name, or I want to have a new skill. Like, I want to be great at this thing, like you were just talking about. Any advice on how they should open themselves up to that, or look for things? What should they prioritize for that sort of period where they're taking a new job, or just taking a more serious look at the work they're already doing to make sure they get the most out of that?
I would say that in order to get the most out of your overall experience, the first thing that you need to do is do an internal evaluation. You see all these different things that you can do. Look at yourself. Where do you struggle? Where do you don't want to spend the majority of your time? Now, let's make a 30, 60, 90 day on where you don't want to spend any more of your time. So let's look at efficiency, how you go about your day, how you utilize your time and hours. Are you spending 8 hours at your job? Are you taking a lunch? If you got sick with COVID tomorrow, who's going to be able to do all the things that you do? If the answer is, oh my goodness, don't panic. Make a plan, a 30, 60, 90-day plan that uses all types of evaluation methods. You can do videos, you can do PowerPoints, you can look and see if your HRIS system provides additional training for all the people who work there. It's not hard. It's just a challenge to get those things in line. What did I do? I looked at myself and I said, okay, I have minimized the amount of time I spend on things I don't like to do. I have maximized the amount of time I spend on things I do. What's next? So I said, the next thing that I want to learn is more technology things. I want to learn more about AI, how it affects the hiring process. I want to learn more about production and productivity as it relates to my business. And then I found Power BI and project management. And then that opened up a whole new door. Okay, well, how can I insert project management into regular HR? Okay, well, if I'm going to do a new HR system, project management. Okay, if I want to visually show someone how much time we're spending on it versus the output that we're gaining on this. Okay, well, that's a Power BI. Right now, I'm building Power BI boards to look at productivity versus attendance, which will strategically, because if you are at the HR director level, you're thinking strategically. Strategically, it tells me how many people I need to hire. Are my people really full-time? If so, am I getting the most out of their hours? Is there a more effective way to utilize the time that they're spending in the field versus the time that they're actually doing compliance-based training? If I didn't do my 30, 60-day evaluation of my internal processes, I would have never seen the gap that existed between HR and strategic productivity and operations. So that's when I moved more into people operations. So that made me feel like, hey, I'm ready for the next challenge, which is being a chiro. So when am I going to be ready to really become more strategically involved in the development of the companies in which I choose to work and associate with? When will I be ready to say, you know what, in the next 10 years, the labor department has predicted that we're going to have a 15% increase. Okay, well, strategically, how does that affect us? Strategically, if I don't go backwards and do succession planning and have a direct pipeline to trade schools, to high schools, I won't be able to continuously have people who are able to do this job effectively and easily. So that's what I did. And that made my recruiting so much easier, because then I knew what relationships I needed to build. And then I built those relationships. So that's how I kind of took it, the 30, 60, 90 day for my career.
So I want to ask you 40 more questions, Grace. You're an incredible fountain of information. Your passion is like coming right through the airwaves here. I know everybody else is probably doing the virtual fist pump there, just loving this so much. But I know we have to be respectful of your time. So if someone wants to connect with you, wants to learn more, wants to hear more about your journey and your approach here, or maybe they missed some of those incredible one-liner quotes in there that I've tried to write down as many as I could, so good. If someone wants to connect with you on LinkedIn, are you okay with that?
I am excited about connecting on LinkedIn. If you're new in your career, I am more than happy to be a resource for you. If you need to check anything out on me, I have union, non-union, government, technology, healthcare, and retail experience. I know it's a lot, but it's essential. And the secret is take chances in your career, be intentional about what you want to learn, and always remember that you're learning. And you're in a state of learning. And if you just follow those things, I think you will love HR.
That's awesome. Grace, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'm so grateful that I got a chance to meet you in person and got to bring your voice, your insights, your encouragement to all of our friends out here in HR. Thank you again for joining us today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Hope you got on fire from this conversation. I know you probably did, because I did for sure. More good stuff on HR Summer School coming right up. My goodness.
That was a lot. I was a fireball. Grace is on another level. That energy, the wisdom, the insights, the gray hairs. Shout out to the gray hair corner people. Yeah, we're getting there.
Oh, goodness gracious. I keep the beard trimmed.
Ben rubs his whole face for all his gray hair.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I think that's a new shirt. We have the ranch shirt. I think we need to have gray hair. I think somehow make HR the face and then gray hair over here. We'll work on something.
I said so. There we go. Gray hair trumps gray hair trumps everything. Now, Grace, superstar, love and appreciate her insight there, her encouragement. Again, some are like, listen, this is like basic nuts and bolts stuff, but some of it also, I love that she took the entire span of your HR career. No matter where you are, you could get something from that, some encouragement, and she's leading by example. Like, hey, listen, something new, I'll learn it. And I loved her lazy one was the thing that kind of stuck out to me. Hey, you know what? Got a lazy person next to you, start learning their job. They'll give you a chance to build a new skill, give you a chance to improve yourself. Yes, you can just sit there and be annoyed and bothered by them, but maybe both of those can be true at the same time. I can be annoyed and still say, well, fine, I'll take this as an opportunity to build a new skill I didn't have before.
You know, another thing I think about lazy people too is that sometimes we get lazy because we don't understand. We weren't fully trained. And that's not necessarily, we see it as lazy. That's our perspective. But in some realities, if you get to know that person, it's like, man, they got me in here. They got me in here and I have no clue what's going on. It's perceived as laziness.
I'm sorry, I'm reading the comments. Norma said, we don't need a shirt. We've got gray hair already. We don't need a shirt. We're good. I'm with you, Norma. I'm with you on that. Okay, so we're going to wrap up for the day. We'll be back here again tomorrow. That same link that got you into the kind of the live page to log in, the same way that you get in tomorrow. If you had trouble, ping us. We'll make sure and get you set up. So really quickly, some giveaways for the end of the day. I'm going to flash that back up on screen here. So almost cut the top off there. So a couple things. I want to work in human resources. That book for kids, for grandkids, for nieces and nephews, anybody that you know and love. If you've got a teacher, give it to them, let them read it to their class. Champion Your Purpose book. We got some winners of George's book there. The HR Summer School shirts for this year. Hopefully ours will arrive so we can wear them live before the event is over with. And then, so one last thing, quick shout out. So Judy reached out to me. For any of you who have an SPHR, a GPHR, one of those unique sets of requirements for recertification, she said, listen, if there's any way to get recert credits in here for that, that'd be great for us who need those. It was kind of hard to make that all work because of some of the way that HRCI runs their stuff. So instead, I put together, we're finishing it up this week, a 2-hour course on some of our training on AI and HR, how it works, what it can do, some of those things. Really an emphasis on how to make work more human. So if you enjoy anything you've heard me say, you'll enjoy that one. If not, you can still get 2 credits even if you don't enjoy it. So there's that. So Judy, you're the names on top of that list because you asked for it. So for all of our friends that want that, we're working with HRCI to get that approved for 2 business credits, and that will be available to those of you. I tried to grab a couple of you that had the SPHR because you know all too well the challenge of getting those in place. And then last but not least, a thank you again to our sponsors, our partners for the event for helping to make this possible. We appreciate each and every one of them, and they help us to put this event together. We're just so grateful for them. So, all right, we have one minute left. George, any closing thoughts, any last words, anything you want to leave the audience with? You kicked us off today really well.
You know, I would just go back and say, I'm reminded today of why I love HR Summer School and, you know, the phenomenal speakers that we've had today. And I'm excited about tomorrow. It gets better and better. What really is frustrating, Ben, as we're here, is what's really frustrating me is that it has to end. I remember 5 years ago when we first started, we had 5 days and it was like 15 hours of HR.
It was 20 hours long the first year. Okay. And I didn't have a George. Okay. So I was pretty worn out trying to make that all happen. So
I just want to encourage everybody, listen, if you've enjoyed what you've seen today, make sure you repost this, tag some friends, invite them.
Yes.
Tomorrow, we're going to have a jam-packed day of sessions of more insight, more connections, new faces virtually, and more gray hair.
I'll bring mine.
I'll bring mine. No shame.
Share that's a good call out. So I've seen Kenny Dang in the chat here. He was our Unity Award winner last year. Post on LinkedIn, share some of your big findings, your takeaways, your ideas for the day, the things that have inspired you. Tag our speakers, let them know you appreciated them, and tag Summer School. And we'll be picking some of those people that post a good recap for awards. Some of those people that are in that list already have already started sharing some of those findings or have shared photos of them enjoying summer school too. So we love to see all that as well. So thank you all so much. We will catch you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks.